Okay, so we're ready to start. If you want to hit record, Delilah, we can begin the
This
meeting.
conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome to the South Burlington Development Review Board meeting for February 17th, 2021. My name is Matt Cota. I'm chair of the Development Review Board. With me on the DRB is Brian Sullivan, Mark Baer, Don Philibert, Alyssa Eyring, and Jim Langan is not with us today. Is that correct, Jim? Yep. Don't hear him. He's not here. But he had to be away for a professional obligation. And we do have a vacancy on the board, but there's some news about that coming up. Also in attendance from the city of South Burlington is Marla Keene, our development review planner, and Delilah Hall, our zoning administrator. First item on the agenda are additions, deletions, or changes in the order of agenda items. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes from staff or the board? Hearing none, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is announcements. As I begin every announcement here on this new age of Zoom meetings, virtual meetings, I want to thank you for those in attendance, those on the phone, those watching online. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. I also want to remind anyone who wishes to participate in this hearing that they should sign the virtual sign-in sheet. That's often called the chat box. If you don't know where the chat box is, or you're having trouble, or if you're on the phone and don't have access to the chat box, you should send an email to Marla Keene at mkeene@sburl.com, or to me, mcoda@sburl.com, to provide your contact information. It's necessary to sign in digitally in order to be considered a participant, should you want to obtain party status in order to appeal a decision made by this board. You can also submit comments in writing through email, fax, or snail mail, of course. I would ask anyone that's participating to mute your phone or computer so we don't hear the ambient noise in the background. Delilah can mute all, but it's a lot easier if everyone just sort of mutes their own, the phone themselves. The second announcement to make is that, Marla, is this okay if I do this? Is that we did have a vacancy on the board. We will soon have a new member. Her name is Stephanie Wyman. I believe she is watching and listening tonight. I won't make her introduce herself. She doesn't want to, but she will not be participating as a board member tonight, but she will be, I'm told, with us March 3rd, which is very exciting, and we're very happy to have her. Stephanie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. Great to see you, Stephanie.
Happy to be here.
The third comment on the agenda is, the third item on the agenda is comments and questions from the public, not related to any of the items that are on the agenda. So if you have a comment, there's a couple of ways to do that. First is to just enter your name in the chat box and say, I'd like to make a public comment not related to the agenda. Or you simply shout out, hey, Matt, I want to say something, and I'll call on you and make sure everyone has a chance. But this is anything not related to the agenda tonight. So I'm going to check the chat box. I see some people have signed in. That's great. Thank you very much, John and Roger. I don't see anyone asking for a public comment not related to the agenda. I'm not hearing anyone shout out my name, so I'm going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is site plan application SB 21007 and conditional use application CU 2101 of Rice Memorial High School to amend a previously approved site plan for 126,875 square foot educational facility. The amendment consists of a 160 square foot building expansion to house a new cooler freezer at 99 Proctor Avenue. Now, I'm told by staff that the applicant has requested a continuation to work out outstanding issues before a DRB review, and staff recommends the continuation of this item to March 16th, and I have no objections to that. So I would make a motion that we continue site plan application SB 21007 and conditional use application CU 2101 of Rice Memorial High School until March 16th. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Don. Do a roll call. Brian?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Aye.
And Matt votes aye. And we have continued the application until March 16th. Now we move to the 5th item on the agenda, which is the preliminary plat application SD 2040 of O'Brien Eastview LLC to create a planned unit development of 6 existing parcels currently developed with 3 single-family homes and a barn totaling 102.6 acres. The development is to consist of 135 homes in a single-family duplex and 3 family dwellings on 9 lots totaling 21.8 acres, 19 commercial development lots totaling 44 acres, 1 existing single-family home, and 25.1 acres of developed open space at 500 Old Farm Road. Who is here for the applicant?
Matt, I'd just like a disclosure, please. I'd like to
Sure.
disclose that I actually am a resident. I own a property in Hillside. But I don't believe that will compromise my objectivity at all. And if anyone has any concerns, please raise them. I knew about this when I bought my property, or I had a vague sense of the development. So I believe I can act objectively.
Great. Thank you for that, Don. Great. Who is here for the applicant?
Evan Langfeldt, I'm the president and CEO of O'Brien Brothers.
Hey, Evan.
Andrew Gill,
Anyone
the
else?
director. Andrew Gill, the director of development for O'Brien Brothers.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Anyone else with you, Evan and Andrew?
We have a few consultants online too.
Will they be talking tonight? Scott.
Roger
Okay.
Dickinson of Lamreau and Dickinson.
And I'm Scott
Okay.
Homestead from Krebs and Lansing Consulting Engineers.
And
Okay.
Joe Marucci
Excellent.
from BSB Design.
Joe, excellent. Okay, since this is the start of preliminary plat, could I have all 5 of you raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Just for the record, all 5 said yes. And we've gone through the disclosures. So now, before we start this process, I'd like to inform the public what we're about to do. We're currently at the preliminary plat stage of review. Now, back in April, the board reviewed a sketch plan, as we do, and provided guidance to the applicant, oral guidance, not written guidance. This is the first formal stage of this review process. So what's going to happen? The applicant is going to describe the project. As we do, we give the applicant an opportunity at the beginning of preliminary plat to provide context and color to their reason what they're doing and why they want to do it. And then we step through the staff comments for preliminary plat. Our goal through this process is to make sure this project conforms with South Burlington's land development regulations, what we call LDRs, which are written by the Planning Commission and approved by the City Council. We're here to make sure that they are in conformance with those LDRs. As happens in every hearing before the DRB, the public will have an opportunity to comment, to ask questions during the public comment period. All questions and statements should be directed toward the board chair, not directly to the applicant, but I'll facilitate that process. It should be said that this is a very big project. The applicant narrative alone is 56 pages. I did count them. It will likely take several hearings to ensure that we review this project fully. When we continue this hearing, the next hearing date will be announced at the end of the night. Now, at the end of preliminary plat, the DRB will vote on whether to close the hearing, and once closed, we'll enter into deliberations and within 45 days issue a decision on the application. Decision will be mailed to the applicant and those that identified themselves as interested persons, those that have signed the digital chat box, the digital sign-in sheet, or emailed Marla or myself. But remember, this is only preliminary plat. If it makes it through this process, the development has to go through another formal stage of review, what's called final plat. Nothing happens quickly in Vermont, well, except for the weather. Okay, I'm not done talking yet. I want to reiterate that we will not make it through all of staff comments tonight. Staff has done a tremendous job, and the applicant has put together a lot of materials. We're not going to make it through the comments tonight. I hope we make it through most of the roadway discussion and reserve time, as I always do, for public comment. If you're a member of the public and you'd like to comment or email, if you'd like to comment by email or make a comment at a future hearing, you absolutely have the opportunity to do that. This isn't your one and only shot tonight. Just want to make that clear. And to that end, the chair of the Natural Resources Committee, Raymond Gonda, and David Crawford, also of the Natural Resources Committee, contacted me by email a couple of days ago, a week ago, to let me know that they have studied this project, as I know they have, and would like to make a presentation, not limited to the short 3-minute public comment period that we give everyone who wants to make a comment. And I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Gonda and Mr. Crawford, and we absolutely want to provide a forum to do that. And we can discuss when it'll be done later tonight. I also want to add that we are in receipt of comments from Sandy Dooley of the Affordable Housing Committee. Mr. Goldman and the Energy Committee, Lauren Wedman on behalf of the Rec and Parks Committee, and as previously mentioned, Mr. Gonda and the Natural Resources Committee. Some of these comments have been incorporated by staff into the packet, but not all of them. And I think those of us on the DRB, at least speaking for myself, want to make sure that all the volunteer committees that put in so much time to studying these very large projects, which will have a tremendous impact on our community, have a chance to have their say. But we want to make sure they have their say after absorbing everything that we hear tonight and perhaps relook at the packet. But we'll make sure that happens, not tonight, but in the future. If there are members of the committee, as we discuss certain items, we may ask you for a comment, or you may want to raise your hand and offer a comment. But we also want to make sure that this is not the only time that the volunteer committees will have to offer comments on this project. There will be a time, likely in March or in April, where they can do that as well. Now, after all of that, I apologize, but I want to give Evan and Andrew an opportunity to describe the project as they best see fit before we go ahead and step to the staff comments. So Evan and Andrew, I hand it off to you, and please describe what you want to do with this parcel.
Sure, I think
Can I
Marla has her
interject
hand up.
briefly? Yeah, thanks, sorry. Just because I know it's probably going to be a late night. And as Matt said, we're hopeful we'll get through most of the comments pertaining to roadways. If members of the public or committees sort of fade off before then, they realize that the part of the project they're interested in isn't going to be talked about tonight. I would anticipate, it's not final until the board votes, but I would anticipate that we will be seeing this project again on March 16th. So you can email me to confirm that that's true after tonight, but that's the likely continuation date.
Good, thank you for that, Marla. Okay, Andrew, Evan, take it away.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here and for hearing about our project. As Matt said, it is a large project. So what we did was we prepared a PowerPoint presentation. Marla, is it possible to put up the overview presentation that we can walk through? And what our kind of take on this is that we'll start from kind of a broader context and then sort of funnel down to the project that we're talking about here, and also the staff comments. And I just want to again thank the DRB members who have already heard the sketch plan of this large project, but also staff's efforts. It is a pretty significant lift getting through all these materials. So we appreciate everybody's, and also the volunteer committees who have already weighed in. Marla, is it possible to give me the control of the deck or no?
Well, for starters, Delilah runs the screen.
Oh, Delilah, sorry.
And Evan, you have the ability to draw on notate with the drawing tools.
But not advance the screen?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't even.
And Evan and Andrew, there's also, what I would like you to do, because I think it runs much smoother, is don't feel like you have to provide a complete overview right now. Just looking for, I know it's a big project, so it's going to take some time, but don't step into the staff comments until you're finished with your overview, and that I think will smooth things or allow the process to go a little bit more orderly. So if you just start with, what do you want to do here? Reintroduce us to this project that we first heard about in sketch plan. You can offer, some of the things that have changed since then, but really sort of the introduction to what is being planned for this piece of land.
Yep. So Delilah, maybe we could start on page 4 of the overview. So this is really just giving a little bit of background on the overall property. The O'Brien family's owned the property since 1944. It's roughly 140 acres in its totality, although what we'll be talking about today is actually closer to 100 acres. In 2017, we broke ground on the first aspect of the project, which is, you probably all recognize as the Hillside Project. It's 115 single-family homes and townhomes, and it was done through a master plan, preliminary and final plat permit process. Of that project, we're over 60% of the way sold out between homes already occupied on site and homes under contract and under construction. And we're really pleased to be moving towards final completion of the project to this broader mixed use pedestrian scale project, which incorporates another residential neighborhood as well as more commercial and mixed use aspects to it as well. We can advance to the next screen. Sorry. So the parcel information, again, it's 100 acres, 4 zoning districts. What you're looking at is an aerial view that has our project site overlaid onto it. So the road running north-south right through the middle of it is Old Farm Road. Kennedy Drive is on your left. Kimball Ave is on your right. The entire project is really located in the core density area of the city, with Williston Road to the north, bounded by Heinsberg Road to the south, and as I said, Kennedy and Kimball Ave. You've got mixed use development, you've got residential neighborhoods, you've got the mixed IC district, which is more akin to a commercial office space type business park zoning. We can advance to the next screen. And so really what we're proposing here is not all that different from what we have seen on the Hillside project to begin with, which is a single family and townhome neighborhood. So it's essentially an extension of the Hillside development, where you've got both common space, you have for sale homes, and then you have an extension on the north that has more mixed use, higher density and commercial, as well as to the east. And again, it incorporates common spaces, it incorporates green spaces, path networks, et cetera. And so what we're trying to get across with this screen is that this isn't coming out of the blue. It's more an extension of the project that we've already permitted and already have underway. So what's different now from when the Hillside project was originally permitted is there really wasn't something to look at and say, yeah, this is what we're going to be receiving, other than the plans we were showing. Whereas now you can actually go up on site and get a flavor for what we're providing and how the architecture has turned out and how the green spaces look. We can advance to the next screen, please. This screen's really showing kind of what we're stating is a delivery on the commitments that we've made to the city. I think that the project that we have delivered, the Hillside project, has been very well received by the buying public. I think it's also come across very well to the community. So you have, again, a variety of styles of homes on the for sale product, single family homes and townhomes, a variety of different buying demographics. Young professionals, families, active seniors, et cetera. And there's a variety of different price points. And then as we're moving forward on the next phase of that original Hillside master plan, we're moving into the higher density apartment rental buildings just to the north. So if you look at the bottom left page, the DRB members are certainly aware of, we are actively in the permitting process of that. We closed out a preliminary plat this past fall, and we're in the final plat preparation stage. So that's looking at a digital rendering of what the buildings will look like as we move forward with that piece. And these homes to the right are actual homes in the Hillside neighborhood, which, while some of those designs will be incorporated in this next Eastview phase, we'll also have additional designs to supplement them. But on the upper right corner, you have some of the uphill style townhomes. So those are duplexes. And then on the bottom, or the middle of the bottom, I should say, is a single family style home. And if we can just advance to the next screen. And one of the other points that is made on this page is that with these 115 homes in that first phase of Hillside, plus the apartments in that next phase of Hillside, and then this Eastview phase, we're really delivering on the Building Homes Together partnership, which is, as I think most of you know, really a joint venture between a variety of housing providers, as well as the local municipalities, including the city of South Burlington as a partner, the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, to get a number of new housing market to fight this housing crunch that we're currently under. So this is a broader view of the development. Under construction is on the upper right, which is the Hillside neighborhood. So that's 115 homes. Just below that is the proceeding to final plat, which are the apartment buildings that we're currently in the permitting process for, still again in that original master plan permit for Hillside. And then as you get to the middle of the page, you see where Old Farm Road is. That it's actually showing the new proposed alignment of Old Farm Road, where it would jog to the east and intersect onto Kimball Ave. So it creates a more logical egress onto Kimball Ave, a safer egress, I should say. And then the proposed housing development, which is this next phase of the residential neighborhood. And again, it's a combination of single family for sale homes and townhomes for sale, as well as amenities and green space. On the far left hand, you'll see the subdivision, which is a commercial business park. And then on the bottom of the screen, you've got two more subdivisions, one at the Kimball Kennedy intersection and one further east along the Kimball Ave frontage. And those are both in the C1 LR, so commercial 1 limited retail zones that provide for more higher density mixed use development. So again, we have 4 different zoning districts, all have their own flavor. Some are strictly residential, and some are more mixed use, and some are more catered towards strictly commercial. And so what we've tried to do is create kind of a holistic plan here. It's one of the last remaining large parcels in the city in kind of the core development and density area. And again, our goal is to have a pedestrian scaled development that has a variety of uses, a variety of living styles, where you can walk to work and you have amenities that you can take advantage of as well as being close to your home. You can advance to the next. So this is another aerial rendering, which is showing a kind of a broader conceptual build out of the site. And I think what this really does is it gives a flavor for kind of the long-term vision. So we got on the right hand, again, the hillside neighborhood outlined in white, which has both the residential for sale as well as those apartment buildings. In the middle of the page, you have the proposed Eastview neighborhood build out. And then what's more kind of clearly fleshed out here is a potential conceptual layout of the mixed use and commercial uses. And what we're trying to do is incorporate them again, so they're easily accessed by the residential neighborhoods, but also have kind of appropriate spacing and buffers to separate them. So each of the neighborhoods or each of kind of the components of this larger development has its own flavor to it, but I think they all work very well together. On the on the left-hand side, in the sidebar, you can get a feel for what the full potential build out of those spaces are. Advance to the next screen, Delilah. So this page is really getting at what the comprehensive plan calls out for the style of development in this area. So this is actually a heat map that's shown in the city's comprehensive plan. And so this is, kind of referring to the energy and environment and the core location. So Eastview is proposing development that's centrally located in the city's core development areas, which is designated in the comprehensive plan. Services and employment reduces commuting and associated environmental impacts, and the existing infrastructure capacity and public transit to access them. So again, what we try to do is align our development very closely with what the comprehensive specifically calls out for. Can you advance the screen, please? Again, this is sort of reiterating that point. So we're proposing development that avoids mapped areas of significance in the city plans. And we had our consultant Skillman and Briggs review and prepare a plan. The areas of designated significance are avoided, and there's 24 acres of dedicated green space, which represents approximately 25% of the overall project land. Planned green spaces protect environmental resources that have been called out in that study. And so again, you can see how that those designated green spaces or natural resources are laid out here and called out in this plan. And we can advance it, Lila. What we've also tried to achieve at Hillside, and I think we've successfully achieved, and we will continue with the Eastview development, is building homes that are energy efficient, that really incorporate green building techniques and best practices. Right now, our homes that we're building at Hillside, and similarly will be incorporated in Eastview, are certified by Efficiency Vermont, and they're exceeding the 2020 stretch code. They've got solar-ready roofs. We've got customized mechanical and electrical systems, tight exterior envelopes, high-quality, energy-efficient Marvin windows, and we've partnered with solar providers to make the seamless activation of solar arrays should the home buyers wish to incorporate them. And then on the left, you can see this is actually an ad that we've been running, or one iteration of an ad we've been running to call out some of the green features of the building at Hillside. And again, the building styles that we'll be constructing at Eastview will be along the same lines. so this is the energy environment resource conscious. So this slide is really getting at the fact that similar to the Hillside project where there was a lot of ledge removal that took place, what we're intending to do here is remove ledge that's closer to, or it's actually within the mixed IC district, and crush on site, and then use that ledge to lay down for the road construction, for sidewalks, for driveways. And really what that does is it allows us to remove the number of truck traffic that would be required to bring in material and or truck off material off site. I think, you know, folks that were watching the Hillside development take place, while I think everyone would acknowledge there was a lot of rock there to be dealt with, at the same time, the reduction in keeping that truck traffic off the surface roads was pretty dramatic. And it's also, you know, the ability to actually reuse that material on site, I think is, you know, something that we should all be striving for in our projects. If you can use the resources that are there, not only are you saving, you know, surface traffic or road traffic, truck traffic on surface streets and the wear and tear and congestion that goes along with it, but you're also reducing the fossil fuels and, you know, the smog that's associated with trucking that material in and out. So the plan again is to have this borrow pit that we can crush the stone on site and then reuse it on site. We think it's actually a very environmentally conscious approach to development. And this just details some of the actual quantities that we're projecting to use. So this is a connectivity map, which is showing really how we're trying to provide pedestrian and bicycle connectivity throughout the entire project, as well as vehicular connectivity. We have a network of connections focused on bike and pedestrian infrastructure in line with the comprehensive plan. Some of those highlights include recreation paths along Kimball Avenue, as you can see on the kind of upper right hand, designated in that the red line. Recreation path connecting Kimball with Tilly Drive project parcel. An extensive sidewalk and solid surface path network, a trail network connecting all aspects of the project, and interconnected open spaces that not only provide pedestrian connectivity, but they also provide wildlife corridors. You can advance to the next screen, please. So again, another slide touting the connectivity and accommodation of automobiles. So this one is showing the proposed signalized intersections onto Kimball Ave and onto Kennedy Drive. So Kennedy Drive has a signalized intersection already permitted to access onto the multifamily project, as well as the Hillside development. And then you have two new proposed signalized intersections onto Kimball Ave, one from the rerouted Old Farm Road Drive, and then on the east side of the property, an access through the mixed IC district, which is actually a road that has been designated on the city's official map. This is showing a slightly different location of it. We've actually shifted it further to the east to make for a more logical layout of those commercial lots. But as it proceeds south, so towards the top of the page, it would then jog to the west, so along kind of the property line with the Tilly Drive property to make for a logical connection to that development. And so really what you're trying, or what we're trying to do, is provide logical connectivity for automobile traffic to get, you know, through the project, to get people to the project, but also at the same time provide the pedestrian and bicycle connectivity as well. So we can advance to the next screen. So the green space and recreational amenities that we have planned for the project include two significant green spaces. Excuse me, the Hillside project features two significant green spaces, one of which is a park containing a playground, which if any of you have driven through the Hillside development, it's kind of a football-shaped park. It actually has a playground facility in there. It's landscaped, et cetera. But then we also have some more natural areas, buffer areas, as well as walking paths. There's a walking path around our stormwater area, and then we have some resource areas that we've protected as well. Eastview is going to continue along with that mindset. We're going to add 5 more large green spaces, and the combination of the Hillside and Eastview will offer 35 acres of green space, equating to about 25% of the total project area. So roughly 25% of the 145 acres is going to be open green space, which is a pretty significant investment when you're talking about the acreage of this property, as well as the density of the area that it's being developed in. Advance to the next screen, please. So this is identifying on the site plan where those recreational spaces are. So at the top left, you'll see number 1. So that's a multi-use park, or it could be a soccer field. You go throw the ball around with your kid, play frisbee. But basically, right now, it's sort of a flexible space that's in one of the few flat areas of the development. So it's basically at the crest of the hill at the south end of Old Farm Road. The second area is to the north end of Old Farm Road before it jogs down where it's hitting Kennedy. You'll see that number 2. And again, that's what we call sort of a natural playground area. There's going to be some interesting features for kids to play on. Provides, again, kind of a green buffer space and a path network through there. Number 3, which is immediately to the left of the gray rectangle. And by the way, the gray rectangle is actually a private property that's owned by an O'Brien family member, but is not incorporated into the development. So it's actually the original O'Brien homestead, the farmhouse at the top of the hill. So what we try to do is, have a development that sort of wraps around it and is respectful of that site, but it is a private property, so that's why it's excluded from the site planning here. But the number 3 amenity is the historic barn, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with at the top of the Old Farm Road. And the plan on that site is to preserve the barn in the large kind of traditional historic barn area, take down the single story level, and then create a clubhouse and a pool space for the residents of the development. And so it'll have kind of an event space field or lawn, as well as a larger pool, and then a kids play space pool, as well as this clubhouse. Number 4 is actually both another playground area as well as a dog park. So there's a fairly large enclosed dog park that would be open to the public. And we know that that's kind of been a point of concern or desire in this neck of the city. So we thought that having something there that both our residents on site could utilize, as well as residents in the surrounding areas could utilize, would be a positive. And then the 5th amenity is the green space that's going to be preserved down by the Potash Brook area. So that'll be preserved as tree line, and all of this will be connected with a path network and workout loops. So we'll have workout areas kind of surrounding this, the trail network. So, you can stop, you go out for a run, and at various places you could stop and do some workout activities, similar to what you see on the Burlington waterfront with their bike path. So we can advance that slide. So this is just a little bit of a zoomed in look at that barn amenity. So again, the gray spaces, the rectangles there, the one on the top of the page is the existing barn that would be preserved. And then the one below that is this new kind of clubhouse feature that you can see in the rendering on the bottom. You can see the pool to the right of it. And then on the left, you see a parking area, which to the left of that is Old Farm Road. But in between, you have a community garden space, a large, kind of a significant community garden space that we intend to flesh out and potentially partner with a local nonprofit to grow vegetables and donate them, or could be used by residents of the development or broader members of the community. You can advance to the next. So again, this is just showing some of the ideas that our land planner Joe and others have come up with, Wagner Hodgson have come up with, for how we could really energize and activate these walking trails and really engage our residents and the broader public into the green spaces. We can advance. So that's really the end of kind of the high level. I know I kind of drove pretty fast there, but I figured we'll get through that and then kind of get into the meat of the staff comments. But if any folks have questions or comments right now, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you guys just want to dive into the city comments.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. Appreciate that. Board, do you have anything you want to say over the general presentation or before we start staff comments? I certainly heard a lot that we'll need to get into specifics, but perhaps the best course of action is to start in where staff has reviewed and see how far we get tonight. Starting with the context, going right to page 3. We're talking about 135 homes, a single family duplex and 3 family dwellings, as well as the residence club, as we just saw, 19 commercial developments. We are just talking about in this preliminary plat, just the homes in the club. We're not talking about any of the commercial developments. Is that right, Evan?
Yes. Yep.
Yep. Okay. So the first comment from the staff is regarding phasing. As you know, we like to know when things are planned and to ensure that they happen in order. Staff recommends that we require you to provide a specific proposal for phasing, including triggers for specific features to include the recreation path network, parkland and amenities, trail connections to hillside, temporary gravel access to the exercise loop itself, improvements to the south end of the farm road, and traffic improvements, including signal installation prior to concluding the hearing for this application. Such a proposal should include timing of each element and group elements in a logical manner. Andrew and Evan, what's your reaction to that comment?
I just wanted to throw out there that we had put together a like a PowerPoint that we sent to Delilah that included these staff comments, and as well as it's a different file, but yeah, this is the right file. So if you guys wanted to just pull that up, there's a slide for this comment and every comment.
Is the slide reference specific phasing plans in order?
It does. It has the phasing plan on it. The slide does. Yeah.
Can we take a look at that, Delilah, if possible?
Yeah, it would be slide 3 there. Yeah.
Yeah, so Andrew and I talked about this, and I think that this was pretty helpful at the preliminary plat for the hillside phase that we heard a few months ago. The one thing that this format doesn't do is it doesn't provide the context of the comment. So typically when we set up the staff comment, there's like a red comment, and then above it there's some context. So there may need to be a little bit of flipping back and forth. For instance, in this one, the specific comment is what is the phasing, but the context is, and maybe this is a bad example, but the context is, okay, you've got all these homes proposed. When does the road get built relative to the homes? Is what we were trying to get at with this. Not so much like at what date, but like how do these phases clump in ways that make for a logical development?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I think, our sort of take on it was that we had created a phasing plan. The phasing plan just kind of breaks the project into chunks that would be chunks that you would do at a single point in time. I don't know, and to your point, we didn't provide a specific order other than to say that we're sure that we're going to start with the Meadow Loop phase. And then, to some degree after that, the phases would be driven by the market and the demand for the houses within the phases. But I think to a broader point, just stepping back a little bit, in addition to proposing the homes, and it is accurate to say that there is no commercial development proposed, we are proposing sort of the infrastructure and some elements of the commercial development, the roadways and things like that. And so it is sort of a little bit broader than just the homes. And I think that that's the more challenging piece of the phasing, when in particular those different roads or other aspects would get built in. But I think that we're certainly able to provide more detail on the phasing, and it was helpful to hear staff's comments. And, I sort of, it seems like the focus is primarily on when the green spaces or public amenities would come online relative to the housing, and less a concern about what particular road we were putting houses on at a certain point. But, we're happy to provide more detail on that, and can, either leading up to the final hearing on this or after we've solidified a little bit more of the project. So it would be sort of a waste to talk about when we were going to build a road that ends up getting removed from the plan, right? Or a unit type that gets changed or something like that. So I think we could certainly provide more on that leading up to the end of the hearing, if that makes sense. But we're, and I said in the narrative, and it's in the staff comments, to Marlo's point, it's not here. We are happy to set up triggers for when those things can happen, and would work with you on doing that. I think at Hillside there was something, by the 60th home we'd have to build the park. Things like that are certainly fair game. And so, I guess what we're saying is we'd provide a proposal as we got to the end of this process and understood exactly what was getting approved and what was the project was going to look like with a bit more finality.
That makes sense, Andrew. I understand. Okay, moving on, relationship to the comprehensive plan. Our job is to make sure that this project does indeed comply with the goals of South Burlington's comprehensive plan, and that we should let the goals and objectives guide our decision in reviewing this project. There is a long list of things that with the northwest and northeast quadrant land use planning areas and Old Farm Road, what we need to pay attention to, and those are listed in the packet. And I think that staff comment was just to reiterate that is what we're doing here today and throughout this project. Regarding transportation and connectivity, there was a study prepared by VHB for the city regarding Kimball Avenue, Tilly Drive land use transportation study. The study concluded the following: although the full build out of the study area is likely to occur over multiple decades and may never hit the full build out levels evaluated in this study, the incremental development approach employed in this study allowed for the identification and evaluation of improvements at various phases of development to foster a compact, multimodal, and mixed-use development pattern. As shown through the analysis summarized in this report, the trips generated under the full build-out scenario can be accommodated with the construction of several connector streets, moderate intersection upgrades, bicycle pedestrian infrastructure improvements, and transit enhancements totaling $45 million. Staff considers the board should let the conclusions of the Tilly Drive study guide their decision-making review of this project. The discussion regarding each intersection, I'll just name them quickly, then we'll talk about them. The staff recommends the board require the applicant to have a meeting with the traffic consultant and city staff to review the proposed traffic improvements in the context of Kimball Avenue Tilly Drive study prior to issuing findings on this application and report back to the board. Is that agreeable, Evan, Andrew?
Yeah, we're happy to work with city staff
Appreciate that.
to incorporate the recommendations.
Great. Number 5, staff also recommends that we invoke third-party technical review for compliance with regulations and consistency with the Kimball Avenue Tilly Drive study. Project of this size, that's pretty standard.
I think we were fully expecting that. I guess what our request would be is that once we engage with staff on comparing and contrasting the plan that Roger Dickinson, who's here on the call, put together, as well as the VHB study, that we maybe narrow down the technical review to the areas that we may not be seeing eye to eye on, or that need fuller review, as opposed to reviewing the whole analysis, if that makes sense.
Okay, noted.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that the Tilly Drive study came out in November, and our application was submitted in August, and so we haven't necessarily had the benefit of reviewing that study at this point in time. And so I think that the conversation with staff and hopefully with the people who did the study and with Roger really understand what that study concluded and how it relates to the project and the work that Roger had done on our project. So we weren't ignoring the study, it just didn't exist at the point that we filed our application.
Right. Got it. That makes sense. Thank you. Okay, moving on to relationship of the proposed structures to the site.
Matt,
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Before we move on, I just want to ask Marla, or you, should we at this point, should the board invoke the technical review, or should we go through all these comments first? So typically we do need to invoke it as a board in order for staff to work with the applicant and have the third-party review done.
Do we do that, Mark and Marla, in terms of a motion, or is that just something we?
We typically do it as a motion, and I just didn't know if we should do it now or if we should go through any other comments. And I guess I'm asking Marla.
Well, you guys have read through, or at least skimmed the packet. If everyone feels like it's a foregone conclusion, you can do it now or later. I don't really have preference.
All right, well, I'll make a motion that we invoke third-party technical review and compliance with the regulations and consistency with the Kimball Avenue Tilly Drive study. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Don. Roll call. Brian?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
And Matt votes aye, chair votes aye, and it's 5-0-0, and there'll be a technical review. Great, thank you for that. Thanks, Mark, appreciate that. Moving on to staff comment number 6, the relationship of proposed structures to the site. The applicant is proposing a roadway network to serve the residential and commercial areas. The staff recommends that the board explicitly limit the findings for the roadways in the commercial areas to the locations of the rights of way, access points, and the bicycle network in specific circumstances noted, while deferring findings on plantings, pedestrian movement, adequacy of parking for those roadways to such time as the roadway is proposed for construction. Staff considers that since no concept of the development of the lot served by future roadways has been presented, it would be premature to make findings on the adequacy of plantings, pedestrian movements, or parking in those areas. Andrew, Evan, is that agreeable?
So we had put together a picture for this in our email that we sent you that just called together a couple of different exhibits. It's on page 10 of that PDF that we had sent. This is the specific road that this comment's pertaining to, lot 28. We have proposed 14 duplex townhomes on that road. We've proposed a park and a playground on that road, as well as a dog park. And so, we are intending to build the road to access those amenities. And so I think we would be seeking a decision on what that road needs to be constructed. That's not to say that, if we wanted to not put trees on the side of the road where the commercial buildings are or something, I think there's flexibility there, but we do need to build that road. So we would need some sort of approval that would allow for that. I think we're open to, suggestions on what that looks like, but those homes are part of the project.
Marla, is that your? I'm trying to marry the comment with Andrew's response. Is that making sense?
Yeah, so this comment was about the road that Andrew points out, but also about the roads in the industrial commercial zone on the left-hand side of the page. I'm just going to grab the pen here. So over here,
right,
and up here. So it's about those and about the one that Andrew's pointing out. I think farther in.
Can you draw which one Andrew is pointing out that I can see it clearly? That one, okay, got it. Yeah.
Sorry, I've spent countless hours on these plans.
No, I know.
So you'll see later in the staff comments that there's a lot of questions about this road that Andrew's got all his yellow arrows pointing to as well. And perhaps this is something where the board wants to make partial findings on this road, but some of the staff comments that you'll see later on actually question whether it's appropriate to approve what they're proposing on this road, since it's only sort of half fleshed out. As Andrew said, they're proposing one side of the road, but we don't have any concept of what's going on the other side of the road. So maybe we should, I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is maybe we should defer what to do about this road that Andrew's pointing to till later. Andrew, what are your feelings about the suggested approach for the roads over on the left-hand side of the screen?
Yeah, I mean, our perspective is that, you know, the road in the IC district is a road that we're proposing for construction. And so it's difficult for us to propose a project that doesn't allow us to build the thing. And so, you know, the IC lots in our presentation, in our preliminary plat, are very much proposed as a traditional subdivision. You know, so there are areas of the city where this has happened, right? Like Meadowlands Business Park or Tilly Drive, where they did a subdivision, they built a road, and then they sold lots to people who had businesses that wanted to be on those lots. And that is our intent for the IC road.
But Andrew, just to clarify, the reason for building the roads in the IC now, as opposed to later when you have a proposal to create a building there, is because why?
Well, it creates marketable shovel-ready development lots, which are, you know, available for purchase and for building.
Right.
You know, and what, you know, we have a response to the specific IC road. You know, I think what I pointed out was that there are regulations that pertain to subdivision that describe what the road should be, and we would be fully able to meet those requirements. We haven't requested waivers in that area. One time, some of the stuff was that we were required to have a recreation path on that road, and so we put it there. And so, you know, our perspective would be that we'll build the road in full compliance with the zoning regulations, you know, and we would look to you guys to help if there was something that was, you know, that we could improve. But we are intending to build the roads that are shown, I guess is the response. And, you know, it's not to say that they can't be altered in the future to suit a use. And obviously that's something that we're taking, that if we go to build something that needs to change a part of it, that would be, you know, us doing that. And you know, it would be the case that we'd be open to any sort of creative solution that would allow for the roads to be built and, you know, sort of maybe minimize some of these potentially these other characteristics or defer them to a later date, but which would still allow for that initial construction and access.
So here's my dumb question. So Marla, can you build the roads and then put in the requirements for plantings, pedestrian movement, or parking at the time that they propose the building for the commercial area, or is that not in the correct order?
I mean, I think it'd be very difficult to do that. You could, but, you know, people are very reluctant to disturb what they have already built. And so, you know, my concern is, do we know if there should be on-street parking? Do we know if the sidewalk should be a rec path or a sidewalk? Do we know where the driveway should be? And I don't know, maybe some of the board members who've been on the board a little bit longer have seen examples where there's some flexibility built in for those things. But those are my concerns.
Okay. I think she was talking about you, Mark, when she said been on there for a long time. Do you remember any of the commercial developments where this happened, where they built out the roads and then programmed it later with trees and sidewalks and pedestrian paths?
I mean, obviously, there's plenty of examples where we've had issues. You know, Tech Park is one where they built out the road, and then they had to come back later and work on all the street trees, and the street lighting wasn't even installed. And I guess if it's planned out and sort of, I know we don't want to pre-plan it because market conditions, but I think if we've typically asked for is a test to show what could be done so that we don't have issues down the road where they say, oh, well, we can't do this, or this because of the way it's been built. I think a test and a design typically works pretty well, and allows for some flexibility down the road.
So like a proof of concept.
Yeah, and we've definitely asked for that, and it shows that it can be done and that it can be done properly, but it doesn't require them to get the formal approvals that locks them into something.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a reasonable request. I mean, we have done a concept proof. I mean, that is what's rendered in this photo. Provide engineered drawings or two-dimensional drawings of that, just because it seemed like it was going to muddy the water to be. But certainly, if it's helpful, we could lay that out on a conceptual plan and share it. Lay this out with it in 2D so that you guys could see, sort of what it looks like. A bit clearer. And just kind of stepping back to 30,000 feet, this preliminary plat, and I think it's talked about in the staff comments maybe at the beginning. We had simultaneously approached the project as a master plan and preliminary plat review, and then we had abandoned the master plan because it sort of in a lot of senses. But the idea that we don't know if a road should have a rec path or a sidewalk on it, that's the whole idea of what we're trying to do here now with you guys, is to pick where those rec paths are going and where those sidewalks are going to create the infrastructure, the green space, the connectivity, and the development areas, so that in the future, it's just like the phase 1 multifamily project where you come in and the park's there, the things are there, and you're just approving, essentially a site plan. And that's really what we're driving towards. And it is absolutely complicated at this scale. But, the flip side of not doing that is a piecemeal project that comes in one little sliver at a time. And so I think our perspective is, let's put in the work and let's get you what you need to get comfortable with it. And so if that's, a 2D concept, we're happy to get it over there.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I think that's what we're hearing. Good. Okay. So let's talk about the transitions between the neighborhood and the project with regards to the roadways. Well, should we start with Kimball Avenue and Kennedy Drive? Applicant is proposing 5 lanes at the intersection of Kimball and Kennedy, where 3 lanes exist today. City goals do not support the intersection widening without careful consideration. Kimball Tilly Drive land use and transportation study identifies no need for widening at this intersection. Tell us a little bit about this intersection and why you propose 5 lanes.
Yeah, I can maybe defer to Roger on that. I just would say to start that while the traffic study that Roger had completed had noted that our full build out might require 5 lanes, we had in fact in our narrative said that we were going to stop short of that because we felt like it was not appropriate, given the goals that we knew of the city, and we had sort of had conversations with staff about it. And so we were able to get, our suspicion was that by connecting the IC road to Tilly Drive, that it would relieve enough traffic that improvement would no longer be merited. But we haven't proved that out yet. But I could let Roger speak a little bit more to how that conclusion that was merited came about, and whether the Tilly Drive connector might fix it.
Certainly. Thank you, Andrew. So this Kimball and Kennedy is today a very busy intersection, even without the project. It does receive Kimball Avenue as a fairly heavily traveled roadway in and out of South Burlington, linking to the east to Williston. And this intersection really is somewhat of it's actually the primary access point for the Eastview development. This is where we're going to see most of the project generated trips using this intersection. So again, our analyses were done without the benefit of the Kimball Avenue Tilly Drive study that just became available. And there are a number of assumptions in that study, just from a quick review of it, that basically, in the form of the connector roadways, Swift Street Extension, Tilly Drive connection, and others, that would actually divert traffic away from this intersection and help manage future traffic conditions at it. So we're hopeful that perhaps we take a second look at this and discussions with the city staff and BHP, we can come up with a little bit better or less intrusive plan of improvements for this intersection.
Yeah, and just to sort of add a little bit to what Roger said, it's funny, when Roger did this traffic study, I just remember getting, like it was like a million questions that Roger had in order to sort of do the study. And I think that a lot of those questions we answered in sort of the most conservative way possible. And so the view of the study was assume nothing else in the city happens other than our project. What do we need to do to the existing infrastructure to make it work? And so intervening variables like the connection to Tilly Drive, our premise was, well, we don't know if that's going to happen. We don't control Tilly Drive. And so therefore we need to understand what would happen if Tilly Drive never gets built and our project is progressing because we're progressing it. And so I think those compromises and those conversations are the piece that staff is recommending that we get into. And I think it can change a lot of these recommendations just based on sort of all of those various assumptions that are baked into the analysis.
Yeah, just to reiterate that point, we appreciate that, the city and staff's recommendation is to take a more holistic, kind of all-encompassing view of it, because obviously this is not happening in a vacuum. But again, to reiterate Andrew and Roger's point, we had to provide something that was within our control. So we took a conservative tack, but we're happy to work with staff and quite honestly scale it back if possible.
So what I'm hearing is that where you propose 5 lanes, we may stick with 3 to be determined.
Yeah, no, I think, yes.
Yes,
We're
I think
not
that's
proposing 5.
Okay.
So we'll do our best to work with the applicant and make some presentations to the board on, what makes most sense. Is there any feedback the board has on sort of the intersections on the outskirts? I know we're only on the first one, Kimball and Kennedy, but the other comments step through Kimball and Old Farm Road, Heinsberg Road and Old Farm Road. I think we all agree that we'll be looking at these more closely in the context of the Tilly Drive study. So maybe the remainder of our conversation about these purple dots can be, what feedback the board has for us to look into as we're looking at these purple dots. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me, Marla. What of these 5 key or 4 key intersections, what do you think needs the most? Is it the Old Farm Road study that needs the most direction from the board?
I think probably the first one we started with is the one that needs the least. So Kimball and Kennedy, it's purely a traffic question. And then we go to Kimball Ave and Old Farm Road. This is where they're realigning the roadway.
Right.
The board had some feedback and sketch about what that intersection should look like. They sort of originally proposed it as a boulevard kind of thing. Now I believe it's more of just a regular road, maybe with some turn lanes on it. I guess we can talk about all of Old Farm Road in holistically, because 2, 3, and 4 are all really Old Farm Road things.
So Kimball Avenue, Old Farm Road, that's a redesigned road, Old Farm Road, with a signal that is not currently there, of course, right?
Right.
Heinsberg Road and Old Farm Road, that's that turn in there.
And the only change proposed there was the addition of a right turn lane onto Heinsberg Road, which that had concurred with. So I think that at that particular intersection, we were aligned.
Yeah. So on Old Farm Road, turning right to go north onto Heinsberg Road, that's where that makes sense. And that's what the engineers say. It makes sense to me as a non-engineer. And then Old Farm Road itself, traffic study does not specifically address calming measures. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to make the gateway a two-way, incorporate detailed design into the civil engineering plans at the next stage of review. And the Bike and Ped Committee did take a look at this, and there are some comments there about the shared use
Can we
path.
just spend some time on like Old Farm Road? I'm sure the Andrew and Evan have prepared a lot to say because the staff comments were extensive about this. So do you want to walk us through what you're proposing?
Traffic calming, or are you talking about the two at the entrance and the exit, or whatever?
Both, all three. Do you want to, Evan?
Okay.
Andrew, how do you want to go through Old Farm Road? Do you want to start at one end and go to the other? Or?
Well, so I mean, yeah. So we can, I think the two intersections are fairly easy. One, we agreed at the Heinsberg Road, Old Farm Road intersection that a right turn lane made sense, and that's to be warranted. That's a sketch of it there. You can see the addition of it. At the north end, the traffic light, that there was, I think there's some remnants of the fact that Roger had designed the 5 lanes at Kennedy Drive in how wide the intersection at Old Farm and Kimball is. I think that's going to be able to be narrowed down, and we're going to meet with you guys as requested and figure that out. So I think that's sort of stable, and we're happy to take a look at that. To your point, Marla, we did remove the median that was proposed in the middle of that road. There was some feedback from a neighbor who owns the complex across the street. It was John Wilking at the last hearing, at the sketch plan hearing, about the alignment of the intersection and not aligning with the existing driveways to the business complex. And so we had redesigned Old Farm Road to align with that. And as part of that redesign, median just didn't work out with how the new lots laid out, to the point earlier, we've spent a lot of time, and Joe's on the line can attest how many hours we've spent making sure that we're not putting something in that isn't going to work for future use or future development. And it just wasn't working. It was too wide, and it was narrowing the lots, and it was restricting access, and just became problematic. And so we had taken that median out. There were also some concerns from the board about safety, and what if people turn in the wrong way? And it, as a landscape, nice, but we just didn't want to get bogged down on that. And so we did take that out. And then to the larger point of the entirety of Old Farm Road, we prepared a lot of material for this hearing. Details about the sort of traffic calming and Old Farm Road itself really were not one of those things. And the reason was just that there's so much up in the air right now that we felt like it was challenging to sort of say, what's your specific pedestrian and traffic calming and bike sort of accommodating Old Farm Road proposal without sort of understanding what was being approved, where the access points were, whether the Meadow Loop Road was going to be there, or or somewhere else if we were going to have a four-way intersection or add an intersection. And so I think we just wanted to get a little bit further into the conversation. And really after tonight's hearing, we might be in a place where that makes sense to sort of move into doing. But we hadn't provided it. And so, you know, in the presentation that we sent you guys, it said that we would engage a professional consultant to facilitate, an expert with expertise to safely facilitate pedestrian and vehicle movement. But we believe the preliminary plat findings are integral to the success of that design. And so I guess what we would say is either we would propose to provide those details toward the end of the preliminary plat hearing, maybe prior to closing the hearing, or you know, ideally at the final plat level. But we would like to sort of better understand the entirety of the project, because the Old Farm Road really is the center of what we're proposing. And so I think understanding all the connection points and the development is sort of critical to that design.
Well, what's the downside of Marla, of dealing with the traffic calming and some of the other measures at final rather than
I think
preliminary?
traffic calming is a bit of a red herring. It's in the first sentence as we talk about Old Farm Road, but then the comments about Old Farm Road under that same heading go into, you know, the Bike and Ped Committee has extensive comments recommending a recreation path all the way along Old Farm Road. You know, there's comments about whether there should be parking on the road. I think one thing we talked about at Sketch is that traffic calming is not, it can be retrofit, but it's better when it's a function of good design. And so, you know, there's a question about staff comment number 9. What is the typical cross section of Old Farm Road? What does it look like? How does the interface between the homes and the rec path and the sidewalk and the parking and the street trees and everything create traffic calming? You know, in my opinion, is that this is a really important thing to address because, as Andrew just said, it's the backbone of the project. You know, exactly where those connections are, I think, can be malleable within the framework of what Old Farm Road looks like.
So we absolutely want to talk about the proposal of the rec committee for the bike path. I think that's an example of a thing that's critical to understanding prior to developing the level of detail about the road that we're sort of talking about, right? So if we had developed details of the pedestrian amenities of Old Farm Road and spent all that time doing that, and then a bike path was required, but we had bike lanes and this and that, it would become just sort of a wasted effort, right? And those are the pieces that I'm sort of saying, let's dial those in. So we understand, is this a sidewalk or is this a rec path? Are these homes set back 5 feet or 10 feet or 15 feet or the 40 feet that might be required if we don't get the waiver? Is the alley access going to be approved, or are those homes going to have driveways that enter Old Farm Road because the alley's too narrow or the coverage isn't right? I think that those are the sort of questions that, without understanding, it makes it really difficult to paint a picture of what Old Farm Road is going to look like. So it's sort of a chicken and egg problem. I think we're happy to deal with it at preliminary plat. It just might sort of drag on. I think it would be at the end that it would be appropriate, but also preliminary plat isn't approving a project, and so we can also provide those details at final plat and have the integral part of that approval. So either way, but certainly things like the rec path we're here to talk about, and we did prepare some materials for that in what we had submitted earlier.
So this is Dawn. Somewhere in your staff report, Marla, you talked about wanting to view this as a transportation system or network. And it sounds to me like what Andrew is saying is that they have to have a sense of what we think is an appropriate system before they begin to put more details into it. Am I getting this right, Andrew?
It's another way of saying it, yes.
A
shorter way.
I think that makes sense to me. I mean, it is a chicken and egg. But I kind of get that you can't put the details in until you have the high level view of what the structure of the transportation system will be.
And yes, so we're not pushing back at all on the fact that we need the details. We want to do that. We want to do that work and get it to you guys. I think it's just that if we could even circle back to this, at the end of tonight or potentially at the end of the next hearing, I might be able to say, I think we've got enough that we can get into this now. But for instance, that, if we want to move on to the bike and pedestrian comments, key piece of what this road looks like.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Can someone give me a better explanation of what a Sharrows looks like, or vehicle lanes? I don't know if we have a picture of that.
Great Joe question.
Where vehicle lanes are shared by the bicycles and vehicles. It's called a Sharrow. I'm sure I've seen one before. I'm just not picturing
I'm
it.
just going to draw right on the screen. So it's like these things with the picture,
Yeah, a double.
a bicycle.
I think if you've been by the new Hannaford, Matt, you would have seen this.
The New Hannaford's has one of these?
They do.
They are typically put in the travel lane, and the purpose of them is to inform everyone that the travel lane is a shared lane, to be shared with bicyclists, bicycle traffic. But yeah, that's pretty good representation of what they look like.
I used to teach a class on building bicycles, and we made the students learn how to draw a bicycle.
Or if you've been in Burlington on Pine Street, close to the Feldman's Bagels.
South Winooski Avenue, also.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, North Winooski Avenue.
Okay. No, yeah, no, I know. It's sometimes they're painted green. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Taft's Corners has some.
So what you're saying, excuse me, what the Bike and Ped Committee is recommending is that we have Sharrows rather than a parallel bike lanes. Do I have that right?
I think that the Bike and Ped Committee is recommending that there be a off-road bike path within the right-of-way, but not shared. And
But when it's not
if that is not doable, then Sharrows are better than bike lanes. But
Yeah.
many of their comments, I would say 50% of their 2 pages of comments are recommending a off-road bike path on Old Farm Road.
So is that helpful, Andrew, as you prepare to come back?
Yes.
The next
So we
time
took a look at the west side recreation path connection. We've taken a look at, and honestly, probably everything. It's funny that, so many of the comments that we get back are things that we've been wrestling with for 3 years. But we've looked at this, and so if you advance to the next slide that we provided, Delilah, you can see this is the sort of the Sharrow's still there. That's great. You can see the sort of existing rec path that we've been building in Hillside in red. You can see the proposed rec paths that we included already in the project in yellow. And you can see the rec path request from the Bike and Pedestrian Committee in blue. The purple line is a rec path that's part of the current city recreation impact fee ordinance. And so I think that the city's been sort of collecting funds to construct that connection between Eldridge Street and Tilly Drive since at least 2014. And so there is an off-street, rec path connection plan for this area that would get you to another rec path that would cut you over to Kimball Avenue. Where the blue line's located, if you sort of advance the slide again, I think we had Scott put together a quick plan to sort of show you the impact on existing houses of this proposal. And it's pretty stark, honestly. This rec path move of, fences, parking in people's front yards next to their garages. I mean, you're within a few feet of the fronts of people's garages with this. And so, we would rather, look to accommodate bike traffic with the sharrows or with some sort of on-road facilities that would preserve the character of Old Farm Road. I think, I'm not sure how many of our neighbors are on the call, but I think there's not that many. And I think that's a testament to the fact that we've been incredibly concerned with keeping them on board through this process, because this is an impactful development for them. And this would be something that I think, could hurt that relationship. I think that people would not be thrilled with this proposal. If you go to the next slide, I've got some screenshots of where the rec path would actually be going. Just a little bit more color. So here you can see that's the first home nearest to Heinsberg Road in the upper left. And you can see the brand new trees they've just planted for screening. You can also see their recycling cans and mailbox. And behind that is like a beautiful new white picket fence that would also be in the middle of the rec path. At the one on the right, you can see that they're using that area for parking their cars. You can also see the structure of their garage, which is immediately to the left of the car. And the bottom right picture, you can see the garage with the parking for their cars. That would be where the rec path was running. And in the bottom left, you can see the driveway that's sort of a horseshoe, has some natural screening and a buffer that they've planted, which would also be removed. This would be putting a recreation path essentially through these people's driveways, which is why we were looking to accommodate things in the road.
Right.
Andrew, these are this is this property, right? Is this the road, the city right of way?
I think that's the rec path. So the red in between the red, Scott could, this might not.
Yeah, no, I know that's the rec path. But the city,
The red path's the right path, and that would be probably 2 or 3 feet inside the right of way line.
so
Right-of-way line
this
is about
person line is this is the right of way. That's the right of way.
I just didn't extend the line all the way to Heinsberg Road.
So probably city right of way is along here.
Absolutely, and so that is 100% true that it could be built in the right of way. It also just would be very impactful to the existing neighborhood.
Matt, can I ask a question?
Sure. Yep.
So this is showing sort of a rec path, bike path on the north side of Old Farm, which looks like it would create the most amount of impact. What about the idea of doing it on the south side of Old Farm, where the houses are set further back and you wouldn't have as much of an impact on sort of existing single family use, that directly adjacent to Old Farm?
Yeah, there's a overhead power running up that side of the road.
Okay.
So the right of way has telephone poles and overhead power sort of. If you go to the next slide, you can see the actual road itself. I believe there's a picture that'll show you like the poles and things. I think I'm not sure why the recommendation was for the west side, but I think it might have something to do with the complexity of getting the path around those telephone poles.
Okay.
And I think we wanted to point this picture out too, sort of to the character of the road at that entrance, that, you know, sort of clearing that swath for the path would be, it would be opening this up.
I'm just gonna say, as someone who walks Old Farm frequently, maybe not frequently enough, but it would break my heart to see some of that vegetation taken down, because it's part of the beauty of that road. It feels very treed and leafy, and I can't imagine those homeowners would be thrilled.
Yeah,
One of the other. Go ahead.
I just wanted to second what Don said. You know, as I've only haven't been there as many times, but the last time I was there, I remember thinking, I feel like I'm on an old farm road. I actually do. So I would see. I would not want to remove that vegetation either.
Yeah,
I understand
but
that.
I mean, the flip side of that, Matt, is, you know, that existing vegetation on either side of this little narrow 2-lane road, which is an old farm road, which essentially is a cut through between Kimball and Heinsberg right now with a few houses on it. We're putting one of the largest developments in South Burlington right smack dab as an access point to there. So I think, you know, putting the correct infrastructure in, you know, while doing the best we can to minimize that, it should be the goal here, because, you know, you put several hundred houses up at the end of this little nice meandering road with vegetation on heavily on both sides. No one's going to walk it because your traffic is going to increase and it's going to become far more, you know, vehicular. Because right now the beauty is that there's only a few cars on it from time to time.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, I think, you know, our perspective would be that there would be a, you know, we've proposed sidewalks and sort of connections and pedestrian amenities until the gateway to. So if you look at the plan, you know, we have proposed infrastructure, and we've proposed this gateway feature that Marla was talking about earlier, which sort of would be a transition point from the existing character of the road, preserving the beauty that these homes that are in existence on the road have, and then sort of creating an opening into the new development, which is undoubtedly going to look dramatically different. But we did propose that breaking point. And, you know, the city certainly has a right of way and could certainly run infrastructure down there. I think, you know, a rec path, you know, if you go back a couple of slides, you see that there's a rec path, you know, 1,000 feet away that also runs from Heinsberg to Kimball Avenue. And so, you know, a rec path isn't the only form of, you know, safe pedestrian communication. So I think opportunities we could look at that might be less impactful and still preserve that.
Yeah, another consideration here is that while we are obviously planning on adding a lot of homes, you know, accessing off Old Farm Road, the earlier discussion about, you know, traffic calming measures, you know, the intent is to keep this a, you know, kind of a low speed residential road, and then to have the additional outlet. I mean, right now people are using Old Farm Road as a cut through because there isn't another option. And so that's that north-south road that's running through the mixed IC district to connect to Tilly, which I think is that release valve that the city has always planned for in their official map, and which we are replicating here. So, you know, the goal is not to have this be to develop this road as a high-speed cut through. It's to actually to tamp that down, even though we're adding homes on it. And so having a Sharrow type use as opposed to an off-street bike path, I don't think is incongruous to what we're proposing here, even though we are adding more homes on it.
Am I correct in saying that you are not proposing any improvements beyond the limits of the project on south on Old Farm Road? Sorry, no, let me rephrase that. Am I correct in saying that you're not proposing any sidewalk or off-road bike facilities south of the project area at
That's
this
correct.
time. Okay.
That's correct, and what we propose currently. Oh, yeah. In terms of the bike and ped south of the project, yes.
So,
And go ahead,
Right.
Mark.
well, I was just going to say that that's a little concerning to me, and I'd like to get better input from bike and ped in terms of pedestrian, especially pedestrian circulation. Because, now you have the, what is it, the Red Barn Market and Deli, right at the intersection now of Old Farm and Heinsberg. And, so I have to imagine there's going to be quite a bit of, pedestrian flow from this neighborhood down there. Because I imagine after COVID and the pandemic's over, it's going to become sort of like the cider mill, where you can go and get a creamy in the summer, grab, some food or some drinks. Kids are going to want to go there in the summertime. And it's concerning that if there's no sort of pedestrian improvements south of the project on Old Farm, that, now you're sort of walking on the road again. And no, I don't want to promote sort of like any kind of, high speed cut through, because that's, those speed tables are great on Old Farm, because when I do use it, I am very respectful of the fact that I am using it as a cut through, and there's neighbors, and, Peter through there at 20 miles an hour, and I don't want to do anything that would, aggravate that. But I think we do need to look at some good pedestrian flow and ability for movement from the neighborhood out to Heinsberg and Tilly and that sort of area.
Could we suggest this? Why don't we, because I certainly hear what you're saying and appreciate that, and maybe there's a more creative solution. We can work with Joe from BSB to maybe present some options on that front that sort of maintains the integrity of that, south end of Old Farm Road, doesn't encroach upon the neighbors' yards, but maybe provides that bike ped access to the Tilly Drive area.
I think that's a great recommendation, Evan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to solve it tonight, but you kind of get the sense of where the board's going with it. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think we would have a pitchfork bearing mob coming after us with the rec path cutting very close to those homes on the west side of Old Farm Road.
Okay, well, maybe you can get together with your team and the next time around, talk about what an alternative would be to accommodate pedestrian bike travel.
Sure.
Okay, staff comment number 8. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to provide a greater number of parallel parking spaces to act as guest parking for residents, as the residential streets have limited or no on-street parking. How do you feeling about parking?
I have to say, I did not understand this, nor did I understand the next comment. So, if you can't park on the street, how can you have parallel parking?
Marla, is there a
Well,
slide you can bring up for that?
What am
yeah,
I missing, Marla?
Well, that's exactly the point. You can't park on the street, but so then where are you going to park? And so we're suggesting that there should be on-street parking.
Oh, you are suggesting that there be on-street parking.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't get that. Okay, thanks.
So we had proposed a certain number of on-street spaces. I think, we're happy to look at the number of spaces that we proposed. Along Old Farm Road is sort of the easiest place to propose them, because it doesn't have an impact on coverage, because Old Farm Road is an existing city right of way. So the coverage isn't part of the project calculation. I had highlighted in the slides that we sent you Marla's feedback that, the site coverage is maxed out. And so adding coverage anywhere requires removing it somewhere else. And so that has figured into the amount of parallel parking that we've provided on, for instance, Legacy Farm Avenue. Again, I would say, we don't have an objection to parallel parking. and we don't necessarily disagree with staff's comment. It just seems like something that we should sort of confirm is adequate once we've sort of confirmed what the layout of the houses are. I mean, I guess another way to look at it would be to feel really positive that if we're talking about the parking being adequate, then we've sort of solidified the layout of all the houses and the number of units and where they are. So maybe that's the message that we should be taking away. But I think our perspective would be, if we understand, you know, in broad brush that the project is, you know, that the things that we've shown are looking good to you all, then we can assess, you know, whether there's enough parking, in our opinion, for that use, and certainly look at adding some, you know, to accommodate what you guys would think would be feasible. I can say that every unit has, you know, a 2-car garage and space for 2 cars in their driveway. We also have a clubhouse facility that has, you know, 20 or 30 odd parking spaces. And we've proposed a number of on-street spaces. Maybe Marla has the number in her comment, but you know, maybe 20 or 30 on-street spaces in the neighborhood. We've also provided in the alleyway for lot 31, you know, an additional 3rd space for each of the homes, in addition to the 2-car garage. We certainly understand that parking is required, and you know, but we have provided not an extreme amount of parking at Hillside, and it has not caused you know, a great deal of problems there.
Don, could you maybe speak to your experience on that?
Well, I think it's been a challenge because there are parking spaces down on what used to be Eldridge Street, and that's now Old Farm Road. But for people visiting on the townhomes, it's not a long walk, but if you're carrying things, it's inconvenient. So, but you're right. Most of us have we have 2-car garages and plenty of space in the driveway. But there are still times when parking on the street, I know I break the rule and do it, okay, or my guests do. It's not ideal, but I don't know what the answer is.
And I think that's probably a pretty good description of the situation, which is that 90% of the time it's fine, and then it's that 10% when you're inconvenienced a little bit. I mean, there is parking, but it is a little bit of a walk. And so the question is, the balance is, do we overbuild for the 10% of the time, or do we plan for the 90% of the time?
But can I go back to what I think I heard from Andrew at the beginning, which is you have a concern about coverage with if you provide parallel parking? Did I hear that right, Andrew?
Yeah, we absolutely have a concern about coverage. I mean, this particular zoning district is incredibly light on coverage, and I think it's something that is a sort of harkens back to the older style of R1 development, which was, you know, big lots, big homes, and not all of these bike paths and rec paths. I mean, we might have, Scott might know offhand, but I assume we have an acre plus of coverage that is exclusively rec paths and sidewalks. And so it might be twice that. And you know, it's those amenities, you know, they take up the number, and the percentage is low in the R1 district. So it is a consideration, and it's a balancing act, but we're open to adding spaces and trying to make it work. And so I think if the feedback is try and find some more, you know, we can do that.
And just to be clear, Andrew, you said yourself, Old Farm Road is a city right of way, so it doesn't affect your coverage.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. And I think, you know, we can certainly look more at Old Farm Road. I think we have a little bit of a concern, and maybe it's just that we need to put some more thought into it, but that if you put too much parallel parking on the road and people aren't parked in it, it would make the road feel wider, and it wouldn't help with the tighter, more traffic calming, you know, presence. And so maybe there's a way to get around that. But I think that was a concern of ours, that if we had parallel parking on two sides of Old Farm Road. Now all of a sudden it's a 40-foot wide road, and that, or 34, I don't know how wide it would be, but that could be sort of impactful as well.
Yeah, but the thing is that if you were to provide parallel parking on Old Farm, you could do like the bump outs, especially where you have pedestrian crossings, so that, rather than crossing a 4-lane road or a 3-lane road, you're still in the crossing 2-lane, and you're still getting that narrowing down, which is a traffic calming device as well, and providing some parallel parking for overflow guest parking. And it's actually also a natural traffic calming as well if you have cars parked on the road, parallel spots. So I think that this goes to staff's comment about, looking at the big picture overall streetscape design work, that I don't recommend pushing it off to final. I think we definitely want to address it here so that, we don't get it locked in. You don't want to be doing final engineering, additional engineering during design phase. So I think, I would throw it out that you should look at it with the same type of sensitivity and further design aesthetics that you're going to be looking at the issue of south of Old Farm between the development and Heinsberg Road, to see how it all ties together. Because, the term God and devil is in the details. How does this project all come together, with the traffic calming, the benches, the little green areas, the overall layout, I really think works and is nice. But until you get the final details worked out, which I know you don't want to do till you get to final, because details and working things out are just soft costs. But I think you have to spend some time on it to bring the project up to the point where it makes sense to us as a board and staff and the subcommittees when they take a look at it.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable, and we do have some concepts that incorporate some of what you just discussed, Mark. So I think between us and our consultants, we can come up with some ideas for the next meeting to present.
Evan, can I just point something out real quick? Is that I just want to make sure people realize that we are proposing some parallel spots on Old Farm Road already. I think there's about 20. And realistically, we could probably only add 8 or 10 more. We're not talking about the difference between 10 and 100 here. We're talking about maybe 8 or 10 more spots at the most. Just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thank you for that. Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think hearing Mark's point that the layout and the the intersections and things look good, I think is helpful in order to sort of make that leap. I mean, we have not, although we've had this application, we've been working on this for a long time. We haven't gotten feedback from you guys until tonight, and so if we can get through this hearing and we have a little bit more comfort that this layout is looking good overall, it makes it easier to get into those details and to try and hash that out.
So you keep asking about the layout. Delilah, if you could show the picture from the staff comments, I believe it's the top of page 8. It's just sort of an overall plan that we've excerpted from their plans that has some purple numbers on it.
Okay.
Homes face streets. You're going to have the streets, and then you're going to put the homes along the streets. And the location of those streets is going to dictate what homes fit where. What is it that you're looking for feedback on about the homes that is not tied to the streets before you can think about the location of the streets?
I think it's in general, we proposed a one-way alley connection for those homes on lot 31. It seems like from staff feedback that came off well. But that's one area where certainly the alternative from loading different style units is impactful. The intersections between Meadow Loop and Old Farm Road didn't align. That was a concern. Sounds like that's not a concern. You know, we've proposed a cottage court and a certain cottage, you know, unit alignment and driveways and intersections, how those relate to the street. We've got a setback. I believe we were looking for an adjustment to the actual right of way on Old Farm Road in order to be able to put the metal loop homes where they're shown. I think they're only 1 foot from the right of way, and so it would end up needing to be that the right of way was reduced by 4 feet in order to accommodate that, which we would do in conjunction with moving the right of way at the north end of the project. You know, because we already have to go through the whole process of altering it anyway. But you know, that was done in order to preserve the space between the hillside homes and the new homes that are proposed. And you know, we could certainly reduce the rear yard setback, but we felt like picking up the presence of the homes to Old Farm Road was beneficial for all the reasons we've been talking about, traffic and everything else. So, you know, we could push those units back another 5 feet and they'd be 5 feet further from the edge of Old Farm Road, and it would reduce that sort of village feeling, you know, or if the board was supportive of it, I'm sure that, you know, reducing the right of way by 3 or 4 feet or whatever it is, you know, wouldn't be an issue given that it's, you know, I think it's a 60-foot right of way and a 20-foot road. So,
So Matt, Evan,
those
or
are the
Andrew, sorry, I know you're not the same person. Andrew just listed 5 things that they'd like feedback on. I don't know that every single one of those 5 things is explicit in the staff comments. He asked about the alley, the intersections of the metal loop, the cottage court, their setbacks requests, and the sort of couched with the Old Farm Road right of way, and then the alignment of Old Farm Road. Would it make sense to just step through those things rather than just go a little bit off script, or do you want to really stick to the script?
No, that's fine. Can we take them in chunks here? What should we start with?
And is there a better page for me to show this on? Because if I zoom in on this drawing,
Yeah, absolutely. So Delilah, if you would go to Exhibit 5E, that's where that page came from, and you can actually go to sheet 8, I believe it is, and that one should never be blurry, no matter how much you zoom in. I've memorized what page all of these things are on.
Okie dokes, give me a second. Share it.
Exhibit 5F also is pretty helpful. It's the master plan that sort of shows.
Okay. Let me get that one open so I can flip between it before I go into the next one. 5F. Got it. Okay. So that's open if we need to go into that. And let's go share this first one, 5E. There. So which intersection do we want?
well, maybe just
Biggest picture to smallest picture, you want to start with the realignment of Old Farm Road? Does that make sense, Andrew?
yeah, sure. I mean, that it seems like that's been generally viewed positively. I'm not sure if it needs just looking at the rest of the agenda for tonight is pretty extensive, but I think that we reoriented that to align with the property across the street. I think it sounds like generally that's sort of okay. There wasn't any feedback on it, I don't believe. So other than to work on the intersection, which we can do.
Yeah, is the board okay with this?
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me to redirect the road. And it would make the intersection, especially those that are just going around Kimball Avenue. I mean, to a layman, it makes it seem like it would work functionally much better. But
so then, the other major thing, we had added the cottage cluster. We added and we sort of moved the roads. We used to have the two roads you're looking at right now, Meadow Loop and Legacy Farm, intersecting at a four-way, and we had gotten feedback that was awkward because the hillside road that you can see at the top right was so close to the corner, and there was like a 20-foot retaining wall that was going to be needed there because they were so different in elevation. And so we changed those orientations around. We aligned the other end of Meadow Loop with the parking entrance for the barn amenity. And, and then if you zoom in to the Meadow Loop units, the triplexes, you can see that they're sort of right on the edge of the right of way. So this was like, they sort of kind of like pull in and create like a little central green and then kind of come out toward the right of way. And we just really, that was all intentional for the streetscape. But, some of those homes at the far right and far left are, 1 foot or so back from the right of way line, which the board is not allowed to issue a waiver of less than 5 feet. This application is unique in that we have to go change the right of way for Old Farm Road anyway, because we're moving the other end and we have to get the right of way released and the land, I'm not 100% sure of the convoluted process, but I'm sure we're going to be going through it anyway. And so our thought was, well, why not just reduce the right of way in this area by a couple of feet so that this layout would work? And the alternative is easy enough. We can push it back. But if you kind of pull up the page a little bit, you can see where the existing hillside homes are. And so, we're already requesting, I think, setback waivers, rear yard setback waivers. And so just pushing that back another 4 or 5 feet, we just wanted to try and avoid that.
So you just went through a whole bunch of different things. So the board did have a lot of feedback at Sketch about the sort of ends of Meadow Loop and Legacy Farm Ave. How's everybody feeling about it now?
So, pardon me, I have some questions. So Meadow Loop, the bottom structures are triplexes, correct?
That's
Is that correct? Yes.
For the most part, yes.
And then
There's
across
a duplex in the middle.
Meadow Loop are single family homes?
yes.
Correct.
Okay. But where there was a path that was talked about, was that for the Meadow Loop homes? Where there would be space between the home and the garage? Or is that another area?
That was a different, in the comments, you mean? That was to the alley lot on lot 31.
Okay, all right, good. Sorry, I was confused. Okay, thanks. So the backs of the triplexes will be facing Old Farm Road.
Yes, and
Yeah, we've designed the homes to essentially have 2 fronts to them. And so while the garages are accessed off the loop road, they have a very kind of, street facing presence on Old Farm Road, because that is really the pedestrian experience. But we also didn't want the elevation of the home facing the loop road to just be kind of a service entrance, because you've got other homes on the other side facing them.
Right.
So
That's what I was confused about.
yeah.
Okay.
So we tasked our architects basically and land planners with coming up with essentially a 2-sided home that's attractive on both sides. And I think
Okay,
we've been successful.
Thank you.
And I'm going to step in, this is Joe from VSP Design. One of the reasons why we're so close to the Old Farm right-of-way is that it was important for us to include front porches and the more traditional style along Old Farm Road, which pushed us kind of close to the existing right-of-way. So, part of the whole reason of that, the look and feel of Old Farm Road was the front porches and kind of the old-fashioned, more neo-traditional style.
Joe, do you want to pull that up?
Yes, kind of backing up too, because there's, we don't necessarily if nothing is coming to mind for folks, we don't want to necessarily go looking for for things to change. But
Well, we can defer discussion of the architecture to later if people are okay with the general concept of these things. I think Don's point is one that we didn't mention in the staff comments, that these are triplex facing single family homes, but the alignment is dramatically different of Meadow Loop and Legacy Farm Ave from before as well. What
Yeah,
other
I
board members
like
think?
this. I like this alignment better. I like how it comes out and then it goes right to the parking of the barn amenity. I don't know if we've talked about what we've had to do with the ledge or the drop off there at lot 16, 14 area, if that's changed significantly since sketch. But is that going to be a problem area? We spent a lot of time talking about that corner of Meadow Loop.
no, it's we put those cottages there, and I think they're I think that's squared away.
Joe,
What
can
was
you
the
comment
issue?
on that at all?
What was the issue at sketch that took so long, that we spent so much time with that corner?
I think if I
Can't
draw
remember.
on it, the road was more like this. And so the question was, if the road's going to be this far apart from one another, why not connect them? So what they've done is they've
I
obviously
see.
drawn it back, and now it doesn't look like it wants to be connected.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
And again, by virtue of doing that, we also created this space for this new concept, which are the cottages that we worked with staff on creating.
Is that 16, 18, 17, 19? Is that what you're talking about, Evan?
Yeah, so it's basically a smaller footprints, just smaller homes that we think that there is a market segment for. We don't know how big that market segment is, but it's sort of akin to like the Kirby Cottage look.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Well, I think it seems like there's some sort of broad agreement with sort of things that are aligned on Old Farm Road, and that the focus should shift to sort of what the road itself looks like and how it relates to those things. And so I think we're able to sort of work on that, and we can add it to the list of additional information to provide.
So going back to your list of 5 things, so we've talked about the Meadow Loop intersections. You've noted that there's a cottage court. I think we should just revisit the architecture when we get to that. But in terms of it being there, I'm not hearing any concern about it being a thing. The alignment of Old Farm Road sounds like the board's pretty favorable on that. You asked about this setback. What's the board's flavor on what they're trying to do with creating this like wave effect of the front of the homes along Old Farm Road?
So the setback is like for like 24, 25, 26.
Yeah, so
or
these guys
2024, how
back
close
here are
is
really
that?
close.
Yeah. And then over in 2024, 2025.
Yeah, it's literally like a foot as drawn. Like I said, it can be it can be shifted, but it creates a rear yard setback reduction on 16-14 and 13, right? Which isn't the end of the world, but.
I think it provides some interest to that area. I think that would be a very interesting look.
It obviously, gives some room for landscaping and features like that in the middle. And I believe there's also a pathway through in the middle of 20-14 and 20-15. There's a sidewalk connection that runs all the way through.
What's the distance? What's the distance from the porch in like 20-6 to, so it's like your faux front porch or whatever, your back front porch? to the roadway there?
Well, the distance to the roadway is further. Scott might have a better idea. You know, it's about a foot from the right of way line, but then you've got a 5-foot sidewalk and then, you know, a 6 or 7 foot green belt. So it's probably 12 or 15 feet from the road, something like that.
But you can only, but Marla, what's the rule? You can only go 5, right? You have to go 5?
Right, so what they're suggesting is they actually, since the city has to abandon the existing Old Farm Road right-of-way and accept a new Old Farm right-of-way at the north end, they're proposing to modify the Old Farm Road right-of-way through here as well. So instead of a 1 foot, they would move the right-of-way to create 5 feet.
Now, are they proposing making the right of way narrower through here or shifting it across the road?
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, we could do either, probably.
Can I weigh in just a little bit? So one thing I think is important to point out is the Old Farm Road right away here is 66 feet wide, which is, you know, much wider than typical. Certainly 60 is very normal, and most of the right of ways in this development are actually 50. So, you know, that can be reduced without it being odd.
The other thing I would point out is that what I think makes this sort of unique is, one, I think it is worthwhile to take a look at the architecture, particularly on those townhomes, to see how it relates to the streetscape. But two, both on the east and west side, all of these homes are rear loaded garages, so you don't have curb cuts, which I think, you know, sort of negates the issue a little bit in terms of the setbacks from the street. It helps it disappear a little bit, at least, you know, not from a right-of-way perspective, but from the pedestrian experience.
Yeah, because you're looking at a little bit of lawn, a little path to a sidewalk, but no cars and no garages.
And driveways, exactly.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really trying to get like a village kind of center feel on this road.
Yeah, I think it could have an interesting look. I saw some elevations in the packet, but do we have these elevations?
There are elevations for the
Townhomes.
Yeah, the easiest thing, you know, it might not be as big, but if you go to our slide deck, slide 23 had a picture of the farm, the duplex elevation. But
Hold on, I was going over here, but I can go there in a moment.
not sure what.
Marlo, this is Q? I don't see
Yeah,
it.
it was 5Q, the exhibits.
Yeah, that's what this is, but I
I think
don't.
you opened O, which is like Q.
Oh, okay. Right, so.
Exhibit 23.
Oh, I did open.
I'm going to get on a soapbox, and this is really not an issue in this case, because it sounds like everybody who has spoken from the board thus far understands why this request is being made for reducing the right-of-way width or shifting the right-of-way, and thinks it makes sense. But one thing that was emphasized early on in the staff comments that I just want to emphasize again is that the applicant has made some assumptions about what they want to build, and those, until they receive approval, are malleable. So if the board, this is, you know, obviously not a great example because the board thinks what they're proposing now seems okay, but if the board hated this, the only option, there's more than one option. It's not just to reduce the setbacks, to the rear yard setbacks, and have the homes closer to the hillside. They could make 4-foot narrower homes. So I guess I just want to remind the board that, like, you know, nothing is final yet. We haven't said homes must be 2,000 square feet. There's a lot of assumptions that have gone in here. But again, it sounds like everybody's okay with this. I just wanted to use it as an example while we're waiting here.
Well, what's involved in changing the right of way for Old Farm Road?
It's a big process, but like
Big process for who, though? Is it for us, or is it
City
something the
Council.
planning commission, city council has to change it?
Yes.
So, good luck with that if you win on March 3rd.
March 2nd.
Yeah,
Don't vote on March 3rd. It'll be too late.
To be clear, we would not be saying let's alter the right of way if we weren't already in that process for the north end of Old Farm Road. It just seemed like it wouldn't be much additional work because we're going to be dealing with it anyway. And to Joe's point, these homes originally were shorter, and then when we started adding decks and porches and trying to figure out how to make them live well despite having 2 front yards, they kind of got longer, and that's a
So
challenge.
These are the single families, but I think
Yeah,
we're looking.
I'll go one more page. There you go. And go down a little further.
Here you go.
So these are examples of, you can see the upper elevation is the meadow loop side of it. So that's the one that's facing the other homes. And then the bottom elevation is what's facing Old Farm Road.
Those are doors on the, like right above where it says TH2-1. That's a door. I'm not quite sure why it's showing up like a long window, but those are front doors.
Wait, so is this a triplex? I'm trying to.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But does the middle one only have a 1-car garage?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that confused me. Okay, so the middle one is a smaller unit than the 2 on the outside.
Correct.
Yeah.
Still a 3-bedroom unit, but it's a smaller unit.
Yeah.
So again, we tasked our designers with coming up with a streetscape on Old Farm Road that, was kind of a traditional look, very, I think, handsome looking. And then we also tasked them with essentially the same task on the loop side, but we had the parking requirement there as well. And I think it's been pretty successful.
I don't see the porches on the Meadow East Old Farm Road elevation.
Yeah, it's just the way that this is. There you go. If you zoom in a bit, so you can see like where it says TH2 dash, oh, now I can't, -1, like that's a porch roof right there. It's a,
Yeah,
right.
I see. Yep.
Well, I'd be interested to hear what you think, Mark, about this design and its closeness to Old Farm Road.
It doesn't bother me. I mean, I think that they're attractive triplexes. It definitely is a 2-front building, where it doesn't read like, the back of a building with, the parking garages or the garage doors. It definitely has an attractive look on both fronts of it. I'm not. I kind of like the really tight closeness to Old Farm on the ones on the fringes. Part of me, this is kind of out there, but I almost wonder if you create a green space by bumping the sidewalk in so it almost like maintains a similar distance the whole way, along the perimeter of these, but you get a deeper green space sort of in the center of it where the sort of like oblong football shape is. Because like right now they're triplexes, so they're kind of townhome style. So you're going to have this long sidewalk leading up to a unit with just a little bit of green in between that's not going to be really used on a communal basis. But if you have the sidewalk cut in and follow, 7 through 20, sort of pretty close to the unit, so you get almost like a Boston row house effect feel to those, then you get like almost like a decent amount of green space between the sidewalk and Old Farm Road to be, a communal area.
Yeah, I
like
see
that
what you're
idea.
saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah. And then
That's
it's
just-
less,
I mean, like I
it
said,
becomes
Jeff-
less of a, I mean, they're going to be a part of an HOA, I assume, and the lawns are all going to be, the grass can be taken care of, not by the individual. So it is a shared
Is that
space.
possible? Is there a reason why that can't happen, Scott? Guy that always tells us why we can't do it.
He's that guy, huh?
There are some grading concerns here. You're probably not looking at a perfectly flat lawn out here. To make the single family units work on Meadow Loop. Meadow Loop is significantly below Old Farm Road. And so there would be some grade that would need to be made up, but there's nothing in principle to keep it from working.
From a practical standpoint, I really like that idea. And I think that's what the team has always been after, was this kind of unique facade along Old Farm Road, everything from the alley on the south side with the curve that faces out, and then this gentle curve on the townhouse area in Meadow Loop. The one concern I would have about the sidewalk following the front, which I really like the idea, is that a public sidewalk? And if it's a public sidewalk, then the right-of-way would have to follow that curve. So it wouldn't be a consistent 60-foot, because it would be on private property and it would be a public walk. And so.
It doesn't have to. We've done a maintenance easement for public sidewalks.
Okay. If you're comfortable with that, then
Yeah.
That's something we can consider.
Yeah, I was just thinking that way you don't end up with these long strips of sidewalk going from the public sidewalk to the private unit, and you get almost no usable green space, just these
That's
little
great.
patchworks.
I think it's a great idea. It might even reduce our coverage and give us some more parallel parking.
Yeah, the other thing on the parallel parking, I would take a look at, and I know this is just sort of in the details, but on the 3 sets of parallel parking spots that are sort of right on the loop road on Meadow Loop that comes out by the cottages, I'd shift that set of parallel parking spaces to the south so that you're not sort of like aligning it with the Meadow Loop road.
Yeah.
So you spread it out, move it down there, down.
So the road would come out on an island, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
Also, the 5th parallel parking spot is actually the entrance into the cottages. The driveway for the cottages, 16, 20, 19, 18.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely a mistake right there.
Yeah. It's just,
I'll own that one.
I can't help but point it out when I see it. 'Cause,
It could have made it all the way to final plat if you didn't. So.
Good catch. Good catch.
I mean, I think that's a lot of feedback, and I think it's great. I think we're probably all set on having enough to get moving on the Old Farm Road details.
So the one thing of your 5 things that we haven't talked about is the alley on lot 31.
I think that's coming up in
Is that really soon?
in the enumerated comments, but
Okay. If it's soon, then cool. Go for it.
Boy, where are we in the enumerated comments? We talked about the typical section of Old Farm Road prior to issuing decision of preliminary plat. Sounds like the applicant has agreed. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to wait till final.
Yep.
Comment number 10, taken as a whole, transportation comments point to the concept this is a transportation system, not a series of intersections that need improvement. Staff recommends the board direct the applicant to look at the traffic network comments holistically. And then here we go, lot 31, 5. The applicant has designed western homes on lot 31 with rear alley serving garages. So let's zoom in there. Okay. Staff supports this configuration, though the applicant has expressed reservations about the markability of detached garages. Staff considers detached garages create a rear yard space and a degree of privacy that other homes do not have. Because of the advantageous street presence created by the rear loading configuration and the unusable space created by the proposed configuration between the eastern homes and the alley, there's a short section of steep grade immediately behind the eastern homes on lot 31. Staff recommends the board direct the applicant to provide rear loading for the remainder of the homes on lot 31. The board has concerns about the feasibility of this configuration. Staff recommends the board invoke technical review. The applicant has indicated concerns about slope yards, but if the alleys were central to lot 31, staff considers both sets of homes could have larger rear yards with a gradual slope. So if can I break down this comment, Marla? So we've got detached garages on the northern side here because of the slope. Is the staff comment suggesting that we should have detached garages on the southern side?
So yes, the second part, no to the first part. The detached garages are not because of slope, they're just because it creates no curb cuts on Old Farm Road. But yes, the staff comment is why not do it on 3115 through 3125 also?
Wait, explain to me, why do you have to have a detached garage?
Well, it doesn't have to be detached, but to be rear loaded, one of the advantages is you get this sort of personal or private lawn area in between your garage and your house that no other homes in this development really have. No one has a yard. I guess the homes south east of this have yards, but these guys get yards because they have this detached garage.
Yeah, the detached garage. So when we met with staff in I think November or maybe December, and we had proposed homes originally that accessed on Old Farm Road, and those had curb cuts on Old Farm Road, and the sort of conversation was that what we were just having. You've got these townhomes, and you really just have these 10 homes that are having curb cuts, and wouldn't it be nice if we just had this nice feeling central road that didn't have curb cuts? And the problem with a rear loaded alley access home from a home sales perspective is that I don't think it's fair to say that the homes don't have backyards. I mean, every home has a back door that goes out to an area where they can sit privately and enjoy whatever their company. When you put a road behind the home, it creates a non-private space, right? So now you've got a public road in your front yard and a public road in your backyard, and you don't really have a private space. And so, the way that we got around that and still were able to get the alley access was to separate the garage, because by detaching the garage, you create that private yard that Marla's talking about. So basically, your garage insulates you from that common driveway and gives you that private space that you're looking for. So that's why we went the detached garage route, and didn't just, obviously you could slide the alley closer to the homes, but you would be removing that backyard from the residents.
So I understand that part. Now the second part of that comment, which is from the staff, which is regard rear loading for the remainder of lot 31. How would you do that?
You certainly could. It's not unfeasible. I don't think that we would say that it couldn't be done. The reason why we didn't was that we're sort of providing a range of housing opportunities in the project. If those homes all converted to the same type, it would be, I think we had it in our slide deck, I think it's 25 out of 67 of the houses in the neighborhood would be a detached garage. And a pretty high percentage of homes that have a feature which is significantly less sought in the market. So, it was a compromise to say that we're we're willing to take this, we're willing to do this on Old Farm Road, and we're willing to come up with this creative solution, but we also want to limit the quantity of that unproven commodity as a percentage of the development.
I think that, we've shown a fair amount of flexibility and creativity in both coming up with the cottage concept, which was, staff was really interested in us looking at, and then the rear loaded with the detached garages. But, we do have market concerns, and it's one thing when you have a certain segment of your houses, but if it gets to the, half of your homes are kind of these experimental, unproven commodity, you're really rolling the dice quite a bit. And what it does when you have detached garages is it limits the demographics of the people you're appealing to. I think we're probably not going to appeal to a lot of seniors or folks that are approaching their senior years by having detached garages, because it does create an issue during the winter when you're coming in with your groceries that you're walking across a path that could be icy, or you could have to, have a shovel out. And again, we're willing to take some risk on that end, but we don't think it's appropriate for us to go entirely down that direction. And so I think we have a nice balance here, particularly on the streetscape that we think is the most important, which is Old Farm Road, by having rear loaded.
Yeah, I understand that argument. I mean, sure. I mean, if you were to put detached garages, would you use that same alleyway, that same narrow street? Would you have to create a new one for the southern homes on lot 31?
I think it'd be something like a minor redesign.
It would use the same street. Another concern, it is a lot of homes on an alley. It's a narrow alley. You get a lot of trash cans, a lot of snow removal challenges, potentially with garages on both sides of a 12-foot wide road. So there are concerns with it. But I think the primary concern was this whole project. I could talk to you guys for hours about sort of how you balance product types and different homes for different people, right? And I think, if you look at the way that our homes are structured, you have bands of square footage, you have bands of use types, first floor masters, second floor masters, first floor laundry, second floor laundry. We really get into the details to balance a project pro forma so that you can sell the project in a timely manner, and so that you can be successful in creating the neighborhood. And going 25 out of 67 single families to one particular unit type, it's not balanced.
No, I hear you. So
regardless of the marketability of that particular type.
So the southern homes on lot 31 that you're driving in the garage off of that road there, and then the backyard, you're looking at a slope, right? Or I mean, what's the slope from the back porch of these southern homes on 31 towards the alleyway and the garage?
I think the honest answer is we haven't figured out, what the exact right solution is. I think there's a number of different ways we could grade it, and a number of different ways we could design the homes on lot 31. Scott could speak about the options, but the intent is to create a usable rear yard for those homes.
One thing, the preliminary design right now has basically a flat spot out the back of the unit for relatively short distance, 10, 15 feet, and then a short bank, still a mobile slope, but up a little bit, and then a flatter spot out to the road. One option we've talked about would be to have a different unit design where we could make up some of that grade with the wall of the building rather than a sloped wall. Another thing we've talked about would be pushing that bank back towards the alley to create more of a yard right outside the back door of the house. Like Andrew's right, there's a few options. We certainly think they're all workable, and we certainly think it's still going to be attractive yard space for the owners of those units.
And the distance between the back porch to the essentially staring at the other garage, what's the distance there? From like 3119 to 31.8, or the garage at 31.8.
Quite a ways. It's over 100 feet. 110 feet.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right.
And I think that's, to Scott's point, like we're looking at how to make that a feature of those homes. So, we really want home 3115 through 3125 to have large usable backyards as a feature, as another product type. Similar home types are available on other lots with smaller yards, and those same homes are on these lots with larger yards, sort of capturing those groups to whom those different features matter.
But are these single family lots, or are these like carriage homes with the HOA where all that land can't be fenced in and it's just taken care of?
But the answer is yeah, it's a hybrid. So what we've done at Hillside with a lot of success is we've allowed people to be able to fence their yard in. And if they do fence their yard in, then it becomes their responsibility to maintain inside the fence. And so it would probably be something like that where you could, you could potentially fence in the yard if you wanted to and make it your own. If that makes sense. But there are a few people at Hillside who've done it, and it seems worked out.
All right. Don, Brian, Alyssa, Mark, your opinion on whether or not they all should be rear loading garages, detached garages, or whether you like this design? What?
This
Well-
is Brian. I like that design. I think it's, as others have pointed out, it's sort of a test to see how well it will be received. And perhaps maybe in later phases, they could do more of it. But for now, I think this is fine.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree with that. And I also think that their comment about different products for different populations or demographics makes sense. Not everybody wants the same thing. So it's fine with me.
Yeah, I concur. And I'd be concerned about doing a double loaded alley with private garages. I think it would get to be too much. And I think this provides a little bit more of a variety and a little bit more of a separation from the back of the townhomes with the front loaded garages and that back alley.
No, I agree as well. I like the design the way it is. I wouldn't want to put in more detached garages. Sort of see how it goes with what you got.
Okay, thank you. Number 12, connections, transitions between project and Hillside. Feedback from the board of sketch was to improve these connections and by extension transitions between the master plan area of Hillside and the development proposed. There's only one vehicular connection between the two properties located at the north end of the development area. Board should talk about whether we want the connection to Hillside to occur via Split Rock Court as part of this project, or the applicant must demonstrate that the connection via ledge way can work in the future. Okay, so let's look at.
Yeah, so
Split
you're
Rock
lucky. I had written like 2 pages about this, and Paul made me take them out. But I'm gonna talk for a minute. So
Sure.
Split Rock Court was originally approved with Ledgeway was originally approved with this sort of like potential to connect here. Laurentide Lane was approved with the potential to connect here, and then Split Rock Court was with potential to connect there. At sketch, the board had expressed concern about the only connection to Hillside being over on this right-hand side of the page. So the question is this one connection, vehicular connection, adequate given, that there are pedestrian connections here, and here, and then again here, or should this connection at Split Rock Court happen? The Ledgeway connection can't happen now because these 3 parcels are not part of the application. But there should be some consideration for, if Split Rock Court isn't connecting now, should there be a condition that, before, say, this road is built, that this connection has to be made, or, there's a lot of different permutations of this conversation. The only other thing I want to say is if the Split Rock Court connection were made, this open space would have to shift over, and then we'd lose some of the homes in the middle loop.
So, so right now, all the way at the end of Old Farm Road and O'Brien Farm Road, that's the connection between Hillside and Eastview. Is that correct? The only connection planned.
The only vehicular connection, yeah.
Only vehicular connection planned. If you click through, I'm just summarizing. If you connect to Split Rock Court, you're changing the open space
Right.
design. Your other connection that I see here is right before Split Rock Court that connects into the almost into the where Meadow Loop comes into Old Farm Road, and then you might lose a house or two there if you did it that way.
That's I should have used a different color. That's a pedestrian connection that they're proposing.
Oh, okay. So that's not a place you could put a.
Right.
There's two existing houses on either side of that as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then is there another opportunity, or is it just Split Rock Court is the only way you get from there to there?
The only opportunity now is Split Rock Court. Ledgeway is set up to allow connection in the future at such time as those sort of circled lots are redeveloped.
If they're sold and redeveloped. Yeah, I see. Boy, I'd hate to lose that open space. And the effect of having that connection, is it a egress issue where you're worried that people are going to go through these other area to get out? Is it an emergency issue, or is it just to try to create connectivity between the two projects?
This was really in response to what the board had feedback the board had provided at Sketch.
Yeah.
No, I think
Pulling out a little bit so you see the larger network.
Yeah.
Here's Twinsburg Road.
Right.
Is
So
there
if you
any-
live on Laurentide Lane and you work in the IC area, how do you get to work? For example.
Wait, say that again, Marla.
So if you live in this house, oh, I lost my pen. If you live in this house and you work off the page where they're going to have the industrial commercial area, how do you get to work?
Right. Yeah, you'd have to go through Two Brothers Drive all the way, or O'Brien Farm Road.
Or you say,
Past
screw
John's
it,
house.
that takes too long, I'm going to walk.
Yes, true. And you do have access to, we are making sure we have pedestrian bike paths and connectivity that way.
Is there any opportunity to do anything at the northern end of Meadow Loop to Two Brothers Drive? Or is that so close to the other connectivity, it doesn't make any sense?
There is a pedestrian connection, but that's where at Sketch we spent a lot of time talking about the topography. And then some of those homes are awfully close there too.
Yeah.
You know, I know that I was one of the, advocates for more vehicular connectivity between these developments. But also I was one of the opponents or vocal not supportive of the streetscape design of Split Rock Court and, Ledgeway with the sort of sidewalk as part of the street width, to sort of squeeze these houses in tighter, because I said that I was really concerned about, people parking on the sidewalk and then people have to walk around it, and for kids riding their bikes. So the last thing I want to do is introduce more vehicular circulation through these little dead-end streets, which I know that we have them designed so that if those other developments do get built out, they're supposed to be connected, but I just wouldn't support connecting through these little tight residential streets that I had concerns with to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to lose the open space. The cars can drive around, or they can be encouraged to walk or bike.
Yeah, it's one of these things I wish we had it, but I don't advocate the one solution we do have to achieve it.
And we've created, and in case those parcels are ever sold and developed, become part of this. We've created the infrastructure by way of our regulations to ensure that that connection could happen at that time, right?
Yeah, so that was sort of part two. And I don't know if it made it into this may have been what Paul made me cut out. If you pan down and to the left a bit, there's this sort of, yeah, that guy. There's this planned right-of-way, 50-foot easement for future access. So I guess this probably comes later, but where does that land relative to Ledgeway? And is that appropriate?
Marla, what do you mean? Where does it land in?
Yeah.
Well, I think I can see it. It involves one or two properties that need to be
Sure,
that aren't part
and
of
that's
this
fine.
development.
You know, but we're in the business of setting up development for future success too.
Right.
So I guess I haven't seen it the way Delilah just drew it before, because I was looking at it and I said, oh, that shoots out this direction. It doesn't really line up, but I see what you're saying, Delilah.
But I'm not sure that for your original concern about the person who lives on Ledgeway getting over to Kimball, was it? I don't think that saves them anything.
It was about this area. People work down in this commercial.
Oh,
area.
okay. All right.
Yeah, when that
Commercial district that they're building.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, it becomes when O'Brien Farm Road is the only connection that might lead to future congestion when it's fully built.
Well, that's a good question. Does the traffic study look at that?
Say again?
Was the question, will O'Brien Farm Road be overwhelmed when it's fully built? And I
No.
think that was part of the traffic study. Roger could answer.
Right, yeah, we looked at that and no, that's not gonna happen. There's plenty of capacity there.
Okay, so I think we've exhausted 12. We're not going to change the design of the open space at this point in order to accommodate a connection for cars. Number 13, talking about the Tilly Drive PUD is recorded an easement to the subject property line, which staff considers does not appear to connect the proposed IC roadway. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to modify their proposal to provide a viable collector roadway connection to the dedicated easement as required by the official map and demonstrate coordination with those responsible for the Tilly Drive PUD. Any such modification should provide access to each of the proposed lots in the IC area and accommodate the board's direction as it pertains to connections between the residential phase and the IC phase of this PUD. Can we explain this a little bit more? The transitions within these zoning districts.
Do you guys, do you still have the slide deck that we sent? Because we had Scott draw a.
Yeah, which page do you want me to go to?
Slide 34 shows this on an aerial photo. This particular item.
Okay, let me just hold on a second. I opened up a bunch of things, so.
So the Tilly Drive PUD includes what?
They've recorded like either an easement or a right of way that goes to our property line in some of their approvals.
No, what I'm saying is the Tilly Drive PUD, does that include all of the office buildings on Tilly Drive, the medical buildings, or does that include some of them? What is it?
Yeah, it's all of the office buildings, including
all of them.
some that are built.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I've spoken with Bob Bouchard at Pizzagalli Properties about this specific issue on the shifting of the connector road. And his general response was he didn't have an issue with it as long as we were, staying in open communication about how those two sections would connect. But, jogging up the property line, he thought was a reasonable solution because they do have some limitations on the developable area of that remaining lot that they have. I think there's some wetlands there that they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, there's a wetlands map in the staff comments that shows the limitations on the drive. And you can see it, I guess it's not on this slide, but you can see the right of way on the slide that's up now. And then the area where the industrial commercial road tees into the Tilly Drive right of way is just wet. I think.
Well, I
I'm trying
think I don't know how much of your time we have, and we have a lot of sort of more complex feedback, but why don't we get a proposal together of how these two things come together and bring it back to you guys?
That sounds good. Thank you. Number 14, staff recommends the board undertake a similar discussion of the connection between Hillside and the current project by asking the applicant to describe how residents will travel between the residential area and the industrial commercial area to the east, and then provide feedback to the applicant on whether the provided non-vehicular connections between the two areas are adequate for the currently proposed design. Is that what we were just talking about, Marla, or is it talking more about how we're going to get the pedestrian walkways there?
So this is moving away from Hillside to Eastview and is now within Eastview from the area currently proposed for development to the industrial commercial area that I had circled on that previous slide.
So how you get from the homes that are proposed to the industrial areas just to the south of it?
Right. And I just wanted to give you a time check while I have the floor.
Yes, it's 9:45. I think we can get to how much?
Through this one.
Well, 14 and 15 kind of go together.
Okay, let's get to do 14 and 15.
I think this has a pretty big impact on the whole project, and so it would be good to get some feedback.
All right, let's get through 14 and 15 here then, before I go to public comments.
So we had a slide that makes this easier to see. There's a couple exhibits we provided, actually, probably would help on slide 35, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. We don't have to go through too many exhibits. So this is the connection that we're talking about, highlighted in purple. And, to the last conversation, like we've looked at this connection. There's some pretty significant grading challenges, which I've got some slides that sort of illustrate. The board had expressed a concern about being able to connect there. And at our sketch plan hearing, the houses hemmed in Legacy Farm Road, and there was not sufficient width for a road ever to connect areas. We did put in a 50-foot wide easement into the plan that would allow for that connection. We don't support the connection. We're not proposing to build the connection, but we have accommodated that might ever become something that's desirable to the city, and so there is space. So that being said, that was where we felt we could go, was to sort of say there is space here. This isn't going to be the case that this becomes a need and there's nothing you can do, which was the original case at sketch plan. But there are a number of challenges here, and if you sort of move to the next slide, we give a little more information on what those challenges are. And there's two slides. This one, the scale is a little bit over dramatic, but where that purple line is running in the image, this is a section view. Essentially, if you cut through, across the road, and it shows you the amount of fill that the road would be on to make the road connection. And Scott drew this. He could, maybe describe it better, but essentially it's, a 15 to 18 foot fill at the beginning, heading on down into the field. And if you go to the next slide, you can see sort of how that would relate to buildings on the lots. So right in the middle there where the yellow line is teeing into is your road. And the buildings are on the left and right of it. And the road is above the front doors. So, you know, the grade wise, it's challenging. There's a lot of earth movement that would be involved in making this connection. And, you know, in terms of the benefits, you know, slides that sort of talk about it, but essentially, you know, if you're creating this vehicular connection to enable industrial commercial users access onto a small 20-foot wide residential street. And, you know, we don't know what those users are, but, you know, we do have a slide that sort of demonstrates some of the potential uses. If you go to the next one, you know, this is a crudely superimposed vision, but it is 100% possible in the IC district that that's what those two lots end up looking. And so you know, requiring a road into that parking lot doesn't make a lot of sense. It also would be prohibitive of that particular style of use being built, although that's the style of use that the zoning is sort of conducive to. And it sort of would just create, you know, a cut through for two very dissimilar uses. And if you go, if you skip ahead, another one, Delilah, I think I've got the listed. You know, you can see what's sort of permitted in the IC district. Everything from lumber yards to contractor yards to RV dealerships, something like Pete's RV, or maybe one of their competitors since they're up the road. But specifically prohibited is any residential use at all. And so, you know, I think, you know, we've had a vision of that area being a mixed use development, and it's just not the reality of what's allowed under the zoning regulations. And so we felt that sort of providing that easement and that space in case there ever was a viable opportunity to do something here made sense. But that creating, you know, a right of way, you know, sort of cause more problems than benefits.
So if I did live on Hillside or Eastview, and I did work at the new Pete's RV in the commercial industrial, how would I get there?
So if you go to the one more slide ahead, I think I might have we did a map, or maybe it's two. So this is talking about the bifurcation of our planned wildlife corridor, which this potential road would bifurcate the planned wildlife corridor that the Natural Resources Committee had supported in their comments. You know, so you can see that on the plan, the green sort of connection between the two between Kimball Avenue and the Tilly Drive development. We had planned that sort of environmental connector, which this road would bifurcate with that big, you know, 15-foot hill on each side. And I guess if you skip one more ahead to your question, Matt, sorry, I don't have these memorized, maybe two more. There it is. So we did a plan that's part of the packet that sort of gives you calculated travel times. And so this is just illustrating sort of a walking path to work at the IC at Pete's RV, or a driving path. And we sort of calculated the distances going, you know, an average speed. Essentially, your time to walk to work would be 8 minutes. Your time to drive to work would be 3.3 minutes. And at the average driving speed of 21 feet per second, it would take you approximately, what does this say? Reduction in your drive time if the IC connector road was built would be approximately 87 seconds. So by creating this connector road would save a commuter coming from our project to the IC about 87 seconds in the car for all the environmental and other consequences.
Right. So again, so you got a slope problem, you got a problem that it screws up your natural resources area, your nature trails and all that, your habitat corridor. You got a problem that this is a commercial area that you're not going to have, that you could have a lumberyard or Pete's RVs there, that you're not going to have that natural nexus between. But I also get that it almost seems like two different projects here too, without the connection, which it is. I mean, really, I mean, it's the same piece of land, but it's a totally different. It's not a mixed use like you have over in the northern end that you're working on.
I think there's a lot of people who live in cities and even in Vermont who would kill for the short auto drive that's spelled out in purple here. I mean, that's not a bad commute.
Yeah, the interrupting that corridor just to create a nexus or connection, a more direct connection between the homes and the commercial industrial area is not. It's tough for me to get over that one.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Other than creating a connection between the projects. I mean, but does there need to be one? Or should you just take Kimball Ave to get from your home on the hill there to your job at the Pizza RV down the hill?
Marla, what are your thoughts? Oh, she disappeared.
No, I'm here. I just have network connectivity, so I turned off my video. Network connectivity issues. So two thoughts. One is the applicant is proposing that the area to the right of the screen, east of the wildlife corridor, be part of this PUD. What does it mean to be part of a PUD? And what connectivity is required to be part of a PUD? The staff comment 15 is recommending that there be a condition that connectivity between the residential and the industrial commercial area be provided no later than the time of the first industrial commercial lot being developed, but leaves open the question of whether that should be pedestrian or vehicular connectivity.
Well, I think that's the solution, Marla. I think, to me, as long as we insist on some sort of connectivity through a pedestrian path or bikeway, we preserve the nature area. We require cars to take that extra 83 seconds, but we have so much upside, but yet we establish that connectivity to meet that requirement. To me, that would do it for me. But I don't know how everyone else feels.
Yeah, Matt, I agree. You know, again, I kind of go back to the fact that, you know, early on, I was a big proponent of making these connections and, you know, having more interconnectivity. But, you know, when you see the technical of what it takes and how you actually have true impediments to getting that connection to happen, you know, the road profile would be crazy, you know. I think getting pedestrian connection and, you know, is sufficient, you know, and whether, you know, I'd like to see it happen for, you know, to be planned when the industrial park gets built out, you know, whether it's the first permit or some trigger mechanism, but then I'd like to see it actually happen.
Yeah. Anyone else?
It just seems like it's a lot of effort to no end to add that vehicular connection.
Okay. By the way, I'm looking on a different screen at the aerial rendering, which is fantastic because you can really see that slope to between the Eastview neighborhood and the commercial industrial area. I don't know if you have that, but you can see the outline of pedestrian paths, that connection. I'm not sure how that, again, to qualify as a PUD and make sure that there is the connection, how if that what you have on that aerial rendering is sufficient. But yeah, no, that area should stay green. It should stay a corridor for the habitat, and we should build. And I don't think we should build a automobile road in between.
That's straightforward feedback.
Okay, we're at 10 o'clock, so we went through 15 comments of 15 out of 47.
My bonus 5 in the middle there. So.
It's almost a third. You sure you want to go for one or two more?
No, I can't. I can't. So, but I do want to provide anyone that's hung in there, and I want to say first off that if anyone listening tonight has a comment, we are not going to close. Obviously, they can submit in writing. They can comment at their next hearing, or they have an opportunity to comment now. So I would offer anyone in the public that's listening in, if you would like to comment on what you've heard tonight or what you want to hear later, please enter your name in the chat box or just shout out, "Hey, Matt." Listening for anyone to shout my name out, and looking at the chat box, and I don't see anyone. John, you're not still there, are you? No. Okay. Okay, so Marla, when should we continue this?
So I have saved a big old block of time on March 16th.
Okay, so I move that we continue. Make sure I get the name right. I move that we continue SD 2040 of 500 Old Farm Road to March 16th.
I will second that.
Seconded by Don. Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And Matt votes aye, and we have continued this item to March 16th. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, everyone from the O'Brien. Everyone else stay.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate all
Yeah.
your.
Thank you very much.
It's really helpful.
Yep.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. And next item on the agenda, hold on, I gotta pull it up, is agenda item number 6, which is the minutes from February 2nd. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Are there any edits or additions? Hearing none, I move that we approve the minutes from February 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Let's do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any objections? Any abstentions? And the minutes have passed. Number 7, last item on the agenda is other business. Is there any other business from the board or from, we look forward to a new member on March 3rd, Stephanie Wyman. And everyone, please vote either by mail or safely in person on March 2nd. Thank you. And that concludes the South Burlington Development Review Board meeting for Wednesday, February 17th, 2021.
Thank
Good night.
you guys for
Thanks,
changing
Matt.
that meeting to
Thanks.
Wednesday.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Sue.
Bye.